All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Start us off. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just get my agenda. We'll start off with the agenda today. It is, first we're going to have public comments, and after that we're going to have golf operations, and then food and beverage. Start off with public comments. Let's get that out. Anybody have a public comment? None, and I didn't get any emails or text messages. So. But the B&F committee, along with the GM and the staff, we've been totally open to all comments and total transparency. Okay, so with that said, I see John's got his golf team here. JB, if you want to.
Had a golf team.
Just start us off.
I did. Golf game.
I'm just going to start off with the golf, and then you guys can jump in. And I'm just going to do an overview, all right? And then you guys throw it. Yeah, he is. I just want to make an overview. And you guys follow the lead. You guys do it. Mine's going to be an overview. That's all. Yeah,
All right. Good morning, everybody.
good morning.
Morning. First, to start off with on golf, I'll just do a little PR. The cover of the Ocean City, Maryland Beach Planner is our golf course.
Wow.
I like it.
Wow.
Well done, John.
Thanks, Ed.
Oh, John.
And on the Eastern Shore magazine, this is fresh off the press. Met the owner-editor of this yesterday. And we have our junior tour on June 10th and the regular tour on June 16th.
On the cover.
And, yep, both of those are the whole schedule for that group.
Right.
But anyway, thought that was big news to get us on there. With that being said, golf operations, we're sort of addressing this as golf, pro shop, golf maintenance, and we're adding Terns back into this realm of things. Slight tangent, if you haven't heard yet, we're opening Tern Grille, not under his operation authority, today for the winter months. And that will be, Friday and Saturday from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. And on Sunday from 9 to 9. We've got some inventory, shall we say. We're not ordering a whole lot of stuff, but we've got, we will be ordering a limited menu going forward, but for these first couple of weeks, we've got plenty of inventory. So whereas you normally wouldn't get some of the things we're gonna offer over the next few weekends, you're going to have some interesting things that you would not normally find at the Tern Grille, and probably will not find in the future at the Tern Grille. But we've got some inventory, and we want to use it. So,
Well, JB, I'll be honest, I probably should, if it's not under John, who is it?
well, we have a few people that we have retained on the food and beverage staff. We had to do inventories of food and liquor, alcohol. And we also needed somebody to stay on board to get in contact, follow up with the clients that we have that are, is everything going to be fine in May, June, July, September, dealing with brides and mothers and et cetera. And particularly the people that we have scheduled for events over the next 60 to 90 days, assisting them in finding another location, dealing with the return of deposits and whatnot. Normally we don't do that, but that's not on them pulling out, it's on us pulling out. So, and trying to make sure that those transitions take place as smoothly as we possibly can for folks. So, that being said, May 1, when we get fully going again in a new operational budget, right now the plan is for Terns to be back under the golf operations. And with that good segue into the budget pieces. We revised the proposed revenue downward. That's being reflective of a budget correction, preceding your actuals, as well as realistic expectation from what we, some of the hiccups we ran into this past season with being able to provide a good food service, beverage cart, or lack thereof. That impacts our packaging in our negotiations with them. If we had a few bad incidents from that, we're expecting to take a little bit of a hit on that. Hopefully, and John's been working hard to interact with those folks, these types of things, to negate some of those negative impacts of this past season. But again, being conservative on our revenue projections. I'd prefer to blow them out of the water rather than not attain them. So that's on the revenue side. On the expense side, and that's where I mentioned about Tern Grille, we have added one full-time FTE as a seasonal golf pro, and also to provide coverage in the Tern. Particularly, we have folks that come in, even though it may be rainy or wet, then we're need a whole lot of coverage for the grill, but we need to have some on occasion when we pop up in temperatures or good weather or just bad weather, and we just have a few show up. We don't need to staff the place full tilt for minimal amount of customers. So, and there's other aspects of a seasonal golf pro, and I'll let John talk about those. Overall, with the combination of the three, golf expenses are proposed to be down 47. Revenue is down as well. So there is a net increase in the subsidy for golf operators.
So can you give that summary again, if that's?
So expenses are down, yet we did add one full-time employee, but revenue is down even more. So you hopefully have an increase in the subsidy.
Is that in your summary?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on page 5.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
That's all right. With that,
Okay.
go ahead and share your questions on any of the three.
I have a quick question. You already said you added an employee, and I'm looking at this sheet, I don't see it. Golf ops, food and beverage, 20.38, 20.20.
Right, well,
I see where you've got it
Yeah.
written, but the math doesn't work.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't see an increase, to be honest.
yeah, the total is actually down a little bit.
Right. JB, just tell me, look, I didn't check, I can't see the schedule, but what I thought when I was seeing it quick was that.
Part of that
you
was
just-
in golf maintenance.
Right, you just basically promote, but basically golf overall is pretty much flat with the FTEs and stuff and.
Yes.
payroll. It's just so with that, it's perfect timing. I just want to do an overview, some
No,
questions. Go ahead. You're not done?
It wasn't being hid that we were
No,
adding
no.
one. in the golf-
Nothing, I
That's
have
why
not
I said
seen, it has been totally transparent by the GM, the finance team that he has here, as well as every department head. No. I didn't see like any, I think what happened, we just, well, here's the question I have on it. Dealing with FTEs and everything, and for JB or John or Andre, whatever, whoever can answer this. I always like to go to benchmark and comparisons like that, in general, I'm not saying total specific numbers or whatever, in general, compared to other golf courses, compared to what we have here and everything, as far as golf maintenance, as far as the golf operations without the Tern Grille. How are we with salaries, how are we with our FTEs and whatever? Are we basically the same, little under, a little over, just general?
I think we're under.
We're under.
And maintenance, I think we're under as well, right?
As far as FTEs, as far as payroll salary costs.
Yes.
We're not using Eagles Landing, are we?
No.
We're talking general, not against one place, just in general from.
Yeah, in general, I believe we're under.
How are we compared to River Run? You know,
I think we're probably, I think we're equal to maybe a little under on
I
that.
think we're a little under.
Again, mine are gonna be general on everybody, I know they're gonna get specific, and Bob's got a lot of detail and everything. Again, and JB, you know, you mentioned, you made it clear, you even gave examples of why the revenue's down, why there was some stuff or whatever with an assistant pro, which I believe was needed and well-deserved or whatever, but.
John, a little louder, please.
So with the revenue, and I understand what you're saying, and you gave explanations on that. I just want to talk about that at a high level and everything like that. From seeing it firsthand, and glad to have a GM that understands it in background and all that, I do understand what you're saying. And I do understand that if we have a situation with, whatever, let's say anywhere, with your food and beverage, it's gonna affect your golf operations. No question about it. I sat in here, I saw people leave that didn't buy because there was nobody there, or they didn't have the stuff or whatever. And you just wonder if those packages will come back next time. So it's almost what Denise said yesterday, that, you know, everything else filters on everything else, so it builds on that. So I believe with what you're putting in place with the team of John and Andre, I believe it will build it up. But there will be that hiccup. There will be, and maybe not, but there is an
Right,
effect, so I
that
totally
speaks
agree
to
with you.
The whole issue of the reset, if you would.
The reset.
For this coming year. Let's be conservative on those revenue numbers.
Right.
You know, and then we can,
Right,
once the ship's sitting upright again, then we can
yeah.
move on.
I totally support what you and the team are saying.
Yeah. Are you anticipating more rounds, less rounds, same amount of rounds as last year?
I just wanted to do an overview.
Ask him.
Mother
I mean-
Nature.
If Mother Nature is
Well,
the
I
dependent
know,
factor on rounds.
but my point being, I guess to generate revenue, you have to make some anticipations
Yeah.
about, if I'm gonna have 10 people play golf at $10 apiece, maybe I got $100.
Right. Well, I would anticipate maybe a little bit down,
Thank you.
you know, and if we have good weather, we'll make that up.
That's really what I was asking. What-
John, for the last 3 years, we've been plus or minus 200 rounds of golf from the previous years. We're averaging around
We're
30,
up and then we're down one year, up here, down here?
just a couple hundred. We're averaging 30,400 to 30,600 rounds a year.
Okay, Marty, wait, before you go, and I apologize. I just want to do an overview first. I know you guys are going to get into the detail. I just want to paint a picture here so I get it and we all get it, and then you guys get into the detail. I know you got a bunch of questions, and they're all excellent
Hopefully,
questions.
those impacts from this past year are kept to, are minimalized by John's efforts and Andre's efforts and
Right.
general efforts about PR and everything else.
Right. Okay, so,
If we can keep it to that 200 plus or minus,
I feel like
and keep it in those margins, that's good. And that would be the effort, is to not go below that.
Are we gonna have any special programs to increase membership? I know that's been a subject that's gone on for years.
it's
And,
over.
you know, I noticed like the membership is down too in your projected budget, so we're anticipating we're gonna lose members and not gain any at all?
Well, I think every year we gain some, we lose some. The board lowered the membership rates last year, so that, you know, that brought that number down as well.
So this could be an effect of
you're the only one that didn't ask a
the unit price rather than the unit sales.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we let John finish his,
I just,
overview?
and then everybody, I know you all got a
Well,
bunch
I
of
had-
questions.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, it wasn't on you, it was my team. So anyway, it was my fault. So anyway, if I can remember now what I was trying to say. So John, I just want to get the picture here, because sometimes you get into detail, I'm just talking for myself and I don't see the whole I want to get the picture first on golf, because I think it is very important. Golf's very important to our bottom line. I just think about years ago, and again, I'm just gonna lead up to where we are now and how it supports the budget now. When did you first take over golf? Just what year?
November 2012.
When do we have the greens or whatever, or
They
all
were,
that stuff?
they were finishing the second nine at that point in time.
Okay, so somewhere around there, and I was new to golf and all that, somewhere I remember like $500,000, just general for everybody, $500,000. So this place lost $500,000 in 2012,
Correct.
somewhere around there. Okay,
12, 13.
all right, well, and you guys get into the deal, okay, so somewhere around there was that. So the greens, the fairways, whatever, weren't up to competition with everybody else in Ocean Pines or wherever. this building, I'm not even gonna get into it where that was, when you came in for the whole experience, when I came in here or whatever. So we lost $500,000. The fiscal year we're in right now, not this budget, and you can jump in with it, what is the projected number for golf? Just round it? All right,
$100,019.
100,000. So we went from 500 to 100,000. I understand we fixed things, we invested, this and that. But to go with what John said, I'm sure there had to be a lot of resets along the way. And yet, we still John brought it, his team, and then what Andre's done even now with the fairways in the last year, finding all those drains and everything. So we're moving in the right direction. Then we had a little hiccup, but we're still moving in the to me, and you guys stop me if I'm wrong, we're moving in the right direction. The board, Ocean Pines have made a decision to fix this place up. There is a big difference in Tern's Grille. All the points you made, I totally agree with, but we will capture that back, or I believe you and your team are, by the time upstairs is fixed, and all the other improvements. I have to believe, even with everything that's going on in golf outside of here, we're moving in the right direction, and somewhere in a balanced number that's acceptable to the association, correct? So, that's all I got to say on that. I mean, you guys take it off.
JB, there's a disconnect between when you plan to switch the management of Tern Grille to golf and when golf really starts kicking in.
True.
Okay, that starts March-ish, John?
Correct.
So how's that going to work? That sounds to me like a train wreck possibility.
I can appreciate and understand that comment. We moved pretty quick to get this open this afternoon.
Yes.
And I will admit, I don't necessarily have an end game, but I'm aware of that need, of that transition. I was more concerned this particular week between these meetings and trying to accomplish that. We'll be going through, at least through the end of February, and then we're working on an end game for that. But
because that was a big deal last year. I mean,
Yeah.
it really was. And,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, we'll work with John on making sure that his needs are met when we get to that time frame when we've got the season starting up and weather's breaking. But so.
Didn't mean to put you under pressure about this
Nope,
weekend.
that's all right.
Okay.
What makes up the promotion line? What is that?
Primarily, we deal with the marketing through the packagers, advertising, a little bit of everything with that. We've got our golf app and websites and promotions and specials that we run throughout the course of the year.
So it seems where other entities, marketing costs are within marketing, but looks like marketing costs are in golf as a standalone. Is that the only amenity that has their marketing in there?
Want me to jump in?
Yeah.
So actually, you know, that is something that was reviewed, and I was glad to see it in there, and you're right, Dick, and, you know, there's reasons for it. I'm glad to see it there. And the marketing group and the promotion group still do their thing, they have their money, but there is certain things that John needs money for, and John can get into the detail why golf needs it. So you're right, but there is a reason for it that's different from the other places as far as.
Right, and that also covers like when we go to trade shows through the winter time, trying to drum up more business. That starts at the end of this month and runs through middle to late March. So that covers those costs, and like I said, we've got our app, website, tournament features, and all that's built into that.
John, can you explain how you know, one of the things I'm sure you've heard it a million times is that, you know, people can, you know, you got the members paying what we're paying, you've got people walking up paying a price, and then you've got the online stuff coming in or promotional stuff, and it's, you know, the round per round is much lower. Can you explain how that all happened?
Explain exactly how what?
Well, how someone can walk in, you know, in the middle of the season and, you know, get a much lower rate because they booked online.
Yeah, under the prior management companies, there were agreements with the tee sheet and some marketing that they had
Golf
done
Now.
between Golf Now and some other stuff that they would give them, say, a foursome a day or 2 foursomes a day that they could kind of sell, because it's rather than us pay for it up front, that's how they would get their money. So, you know, if I think there was 1 or 2 tee times a day where it might be 30% less than, you know, regular rack rate, and that's how that would come about. But a lot of the people that booked Golf Now, most of the ones that booked Golf Now weren't paying a lesser rate. It was 1 tee time a day, but, you know, we still got a lot of other rounds from them where they would come in and pay that day.
So John, and, you know, it's a good question, Larry, but how much of that was already locked in before you got here? What we're locked in for, how much longer does it go, in general, John? And how does it compare, again, to the best that you can tell us, to other golf courses, what we're locked in with?
A lot of the golf courses do it now. You know, sites like Golf Now, it's kind of a necessary evil. It's all over the Golf Channel. The Golf Channel owns it, and that's all you see every time you watch a golf tournament. So people now have been trained, don't call the golf shop, go online and try to book online, because that's where you're going to get the better rates at. And we cannot do it, but every other golf course around here does that. So it's if you're going to try to compete and play the game a little bit, you have to have that, you know, like I said, necessary evil there.
Well, but your opinion then is that if we're only giving up 1 tee time a day,
Well, it was more than one, because they're 2 separate things. One was for like Golf Now, and then that was with marketing and some other stuff. But then that's also how they pay for the tee sheet, because it cost the tee sheet and the point of sale system and all that was built into that too. And all that was set up through the prior management companies. So when Billy Casper came in, that's what they did. They had that set up, and it just continued in the landscapes. And right now I'm talking with our tee sheet provider about all of that right now. The contract comes up sometime this spring, so.
but I guess my real question is, if we stay with that approach, and I agree with you, we probably need to keep at least Golf Now, is it your opinion that economically that's the way to go for the course?
I think it puts us at a disadvantage if we don't involve ourselves with that.
Okay. Questions on detail? Bob, any stats or anything?
No, when I went through and looked at the budget, this is the first year I can ever remember seeing a projected forecast that I thought was even anywhere near close. I think it's right on for when you look at it. And the forecast for the bottom line, as John asked earlier, was a little bit over, right around $100,000. And that is the best golf performance that we've seen forever, I think, since I've been here. That 100,000, 69,000 is just the golf portion. 31,000 is Tern's Grille portion. And so if we can turn Tern's Grille around, we're really going to be in much better shape. Tern's Grille in each of the last 3 years prior to this year actually made money. So that, hopefully we'll get back on the positive side for that. But this budget doubles the net operating loss. It goes from 100,000 on the forecast this year to 200,000. I think that's probably a little excessive. I think it's a rather safe, minimal risk budget that we're dealing with on that. Because the reduction that we've made in the revenue side is still lower than any revenue, net revenue we've generated in the last 2 or 3 years. So I don't anticipate that based on the knowledge I have, but some of this conversation I've heard here this morning I had not been privy to, so perhaps that's wrong. The expense budget. Primarily, when I look back at maintenance this year in the forecast and maintenance next year in the budget is higher than the maintenance expenses we've had for the last 3 or 4 years, sometimes by as much as $100,000. I don't see where that increase came from. Actually, I thought this year with the forecast and the changes that we made that we were going to see a decrease in maintenance expense. And that's somewhat offset by the $80,000 we're now not paying for the management fee. But I thought when we got rid of the management fee, we were really gonna see some reduction in expenses.
Right.
But I don't see that on the bottom line right now.
So, well, was that offset with, and maybe it was already tight, and that's an excellent point, Ed. Was that offset because of the lower fees that we charged to the members, but then maybe we didn't get new members, or?
Yeah, that was a big portion of that.
That was
and-
where that
and
was.
Health benefits and things like that, those are different than what they were under prior management.
But we actually were, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, we were +8 this year in members?
At this point in time, compared to last year, yes.
So the question is,
But at a lower rate.
but at a lower rate.
And we think we needed like, Bob, correct me or put the number, how many did we need to kind of break even on that, 20 or something?
22.
22, that's close.
We needed 22 what? I didn't
New
understand.
members.
22 additional members
Okay, okay.
To offset
to
the
make
loss.
up for the,
Can I ask Bob a question? Bob, can I ask you a question? Your forecast for this year with golf operation and golf maintenance, what is that?
Well, it's in his, it's in his summary
Yeah,
here.
I'm coming up with 69,000 loss if you combine them.
Yes. No, 69,060 is only for golf and maintenance.
Yeah, I didn't include Tern Grille because he wasn't responsible for
Right.
Tern Grille. And so I'm just trying to look at golf op and golf maintenance is 69,000,
Yes.
okay.
And that's,
loss.
is that opposed to the 119, or are we 2 different years?
I don't know what the 119 is.
Wasn't that what you, aren't you projecting, did you bake in the Tern Grille numbers for this year's loss?
this year's forecast is 109.16.
Yeah. Just
That
say
includes
100,000.
turns.
100,000.
100,000, just-
And that includes turns or
Yes,
golf?
yes. That's golf maintenance, golf ops,
And
Turns Grille.
And next year's 200,000.
Turns is 31.
Say it again?
Next year is this coming budget is 200,000?
200.
Yeah,
So that,
Negative.
that's what I've got.
so that
This
100
is a-
included turns?
What, a 200% jump? I can't even do that.
Hold on,
tonight.
Bob, yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm trying to get Bob to
100%.
say. So, good point. It included turns. Bob, can you tell us how much turns contributed to that number, plus or minus?
Here it is.
31.
31,856.
I was gonna say,
Was that a positive or a negative?
Negative.
Negative.
Negative,
So it's that 60-ish number after you take out turn.
Say again?
negative.
And I,
31,
It's like a
856.
60-something thousand
and
dollar
I
loss.
think,
when
and
you
I
take
think the
maintenance
turns
and
is
ops.
actually playing an important role in the 2019 budget. Because when you look at the expenses that are budgeted, of 131,574, that's higher than any year we saw under the previous business model when we were managing Tern's Grille. Expenses averaged for the previous 3 years, 77,000. So, you know, if we would use the same business model this year as we used the prior 3 years.
Well, some of that, I'm gonna cut you off real quick. Some of that's gonna be because things got split up a little more equally with like power, gas, you know, the utilities got split up more, where before they just used to be under G and A because everything was under one. So they broke out from, so power, you know, now goes, a portion of it goes to the Tern Grille, gas goes there. I mean, so that's where you probably see a lot of that, where it used to be just covered under G and A because it was just one entity. Now it got broken up, and that's probably where you're seeing that.
Been a good note.
Yeah. Anybody want to comment on that? 'Cause
What did you say?
I say it would have made an excellent case for having a note,
right.
so we weren't all going.
So, no, you're right. So, JB, all right, so you got the picture. What do we, so, and I understand how you're budgeting and all that. There's nowhere to go but up on Tern's Grille for this next budget, regardless of what you have in
Yeah.
here. It's just,
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
and
going
your
up.
confidence, and your, well, you're confident in
Yeah.
that, and we're gonna make the changes,
Oh, yeah.
and,
Oh, yeah.
the golf cart,
Uh-huh.
the process, the overseeing.
He's reducing the loss by
I understand your
Yeah, I
conservative
want
approach to
more.
revenues, but you're also, you're budgeting less than you did the previous 3 years.
That's what I'm saying. Look, I'm standing with the budget, but I'm just saying, for this discussion, I believe there can be more. I'm fine with it, I agree with all your assumptions. I believe there's more, because I believe in you, the team across the board for golf, and the changes. So,
Couple of questions
yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
you guys.
I mean, I'll start with my, I don't even have to ask it, Jurgen knows what it is. We're showing a 17% increase in payroll. That's just a comment. You
Right,
already
we-
mentioned
yeah,
it.
yeah, you
We
would-
haven't increased any employees according to this sheet.
Are you looking at the salary line, or are you
I'm looking at the total.
the total? That
I
is
don't-
not what's
But you
being
added
paid.
one full-time, and that adds a benefits piece to it too, plus the
Okay.
I've got it here too, but I didn't want to steal your thunder.
It's still 18%.
They're all over these numbers.
Yeah, but you got, what you have to take a look at is last year, this budget from last year was what Landscapes did, and the benefits and everything for payroll were different.
Okay.
So, but that's where all that comes from. So even if you keep
Yeah,
the same
going
number of
from
people.
the outsourcing to the in-house, that, you know, that's hard to make that comparative.
Right, but
It's
again,
$102,000.
Right.
yeah,
What's
but,
$102,000 divided by 8,500?
It's about $14.
$12.
Question for
But,
Jim.
Marty, and I'm sorry to put it, but let's just get the picture too. When we said about benchmarking golf, the answer we received was we're pretty much in there with the competition as far as our payroll costs.
Well, if we're gonna go competition, can you tell me, in your opinion, why you think we were last in comparison with revenues between River Run and Eagles Landing? I mean, $500,000 less than than Eagles Landing.
I mean, I can't explain why we have that. They're closer to town. They've been big. They do a lot of things with the town. So they've got the whole town's marketing budget. We don't have Ocean City's marketing budget
And
behind
they
us.
put that
So
right,
that's
that goes into their budgets online.
well.
It's a huge expense and they still make money.
Understand, but you know, the other thing too. What's that?
Part of that's why, I mean, if they, that
Exactly.
bigger advertising budget,
Yeah.
they're gonna draw more attention.
But we've also-
I mean,
here's-
just
here-
offset that with the
here's what
revenue.
we've
That's
been
the whole-
fighting against.
That's the whole point of the whole advertising current thing.
They tag Eagles Landing with everything, every bit of advertising that they do. It's just,
That's,
Well-
you're helping to answer my question, and maybe bring to light what something we're doing wrong.
One of the things that we talked, somebody had a question earlier about, new programs and things like that to draw,
Right.
whether it's memberships or just increasing revenue. I won't go there, but,
Membership is revenue. I'm a businessman. I'm looking for the bottom line dollar. I don't care if it comes from a guy living down the street or living in, you know,
thank you for that point, because
Sweden here on vacation.
where we get our revenue, we, collective we, I don't know that we care. I mean, we support our memberships within the different amenities, but at the same time, the bottom line for that revenue stream is, how can we increase that revenue?
That's right.
By knowing where
no-
it comes from, you can point your target.
Right.
Your market.
As well as new programming for members, as well as our guests, as well as just residents here, opportunities to play, interest in the golf course by providing unique opportunities that don't exist at other places.
Examples being?
We've been talking about those types of
I
things.
mean, that covers,
Excellent.
you just
Well, and I can.
almost covered.
And I can add to this. If you just look over the past 3 years, what's happened here, we went from Billy Casper Golf Management to Landscapes Unlimited Management to now we're managing ourselves. There's a lot of instability there. Golfers don't like instability, especially when you're coming from out of state. All of a sudden, there's a new management company like, let's kind of wait and see that. And that's where we've seen, the biggest influx right there is really a lot of like package play. Every time there's turmoil within Ocean Pines, our package play numbers go down. Well, no other courses, especially Eagles Landing, they're owned by the town. That's not going anywhere. So everybody knows this is what we're getting there. They know the quality, nothing's changing there. And that's where they get dumped a lot of rounds for that.
Look, I know.
No, I'm just saying,
Personally,
but you asked a question.
I have dinner with some of those package or presidents and
Yeah.
owners of companies.
Yep.
And it isn't the management that's hurting our sales.
What is it?
what is it?
What is it?
Slow play, members. I'm just telling you what they tell me. I'm not, don't shoot the messenger. Let's go back to this. Why is River Run beating us hands down? it ain't their advertising budget.
They own a package company.
A big package company?
They own the biggest
Pam's?
package company in
Is
town.
it Pam's?
Yes,
They own Pam's Golf?
they own Pam's Golf.
There you
They're
go.
I mean-
also,
How much business do they give to us?
I don't have that exact number, I can get that.
It'll be
I'm
less
just
than
Not,
their
not as much as River Run
Well,
gets.
well, certainly as we
By
would if we
definition.
owned Pam's.
Yeah,
it'd be
sure.
second.
Right.
Okay.
By
they're also
definition.
on the market too, right?
A question to,
Isn't River Run on the market?
Yeah.
yeah, it is,
Yeah.
huh? Because even though it made a couple $100,000 more than we did, it wasn't acceptable to their investors.
They lost more money than we did last year.
They lost.
Not according to their.
They lost $200,000.
I just looked, well, then maybe we're a year off. The year before that, they beat us by over 200,000.
And I got Doug back. No, I'm sorry, when you, no, I gotta get Doug in next.
We're talking about, these rounds. When you mentioned, what, 30,000 rounds? What, is that 18 hole rounds or a combination of 18 and 9s?
Combination 9 and 18, it's probably about
It's
4,000.
a start.
Okay.
It's a start.
While percentage guess, and it doesn't have to be exact, what percentage of these rounds are golf members versus others? And when I say others, I don't care if they live on Ocean Parkway or live in Timbuktu. If they're not a paid member, they're others. What do you think that percentage is? Just a guess.
I don't care.
You're gonna be close.
60%,
60% what?
non,
Non-members?
I'd guess it'd be even higher.
Well, for example, last year, with the data that John's given me,
I'm gonna get Doug in.
of the 30,500 rounds,
I just wanna get his attention.
around 10,000 were member rounds, 8,500 were resident rounds.
That's throwing something in that's,
All right, Marty, let
Just
them
confused.
just, then we'll get back. Hold on, because I wanna get to, no, finish and then I wanna get to Doug.
And the rest were
But for none.
public,
So about
non-members.
12,000.
Non-members and non-residents,
So about
non-OPA.
1/3
Right.
was members.
1/3 was members, yeah.
About 10,000 to 30 was the actual full-time members, whether they play 9 or 18, yeah, okay.
All right,
You're
let me
thinking it's
Marty,
closer
let me
to
just get Doug, and we're gonna go back to you guys, there's plenty of time on this. I got Doug and then I got you.
Any special treatment, John?
Nobody's getting special, you had the next hand.
All right, just with the desire to move the Tern Grille back under golf operations, are the labor costs to run the Tern Grille included in these labor numbers here, the personnel costs in this budget?
In the turn piece?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tern's included in the labor costs here.
What did I say?
Is the answer yes?
If you're looking at the turn grill budget, yes.
We didn't talk.
It's in the golf
But I mean,
tab.
The golf tab, no.
No, but it's listed separately in the Tern Grille.
Right.
So
Yeah.
to get full
Right.
understanding golf operations, payroll wise, you have to look at both of those. Okay,
Right.
so that's just one.
It's actually, Tern's is actually less
Down,
labor
it's
than it
actually,
was
yeah, it's
this
actually
year.
less.
All right, just wanted clarification.
All right, I got, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
The addition of the seasonal pro, that also helps out with turns, that's a piece of that.
That's right, that's a good point.
That's under golf operations,
That's a good point.
that position.
It's gonna give you better coverage.
So that is a little bit of turn grill that's in the golf operations budget versus the turn grill budget payroll wise.
Okay.
Okay, I got Gene, Gene's waiting here.
When I combine all the numbers for 2018, Tern Grille, golf ops, and golf maintenance, I come out with $100,000 loss. When I combine all the numbers for 2019, I come out with a 200,000,
Right.
201.
That's your reduction in revenue and other side on the expense.
Let me go on. It's a reduction of revenue by $78,000. It's an increase in maintenance costs of $42,000 and a decrease in the loss at Tern Grille of $19,000. Of all those numbers, the 78, the reduction of revenue by $78,000, the increase of maintenance costs for $42,000, and the decrease in the loss of Tern Grille. My question to you would be, or John, really, since you're going to be managing this, which of those three numbers, 78, 42, and 19, do you feel you have the better chance of improving? The 78? I would think it would be that, because you know your expenses pretty well. But Is that a fair statement that you've made a very conservative revenue projection here? Very conservative, and I think that's good. Do you have any expectations that you could probably do a little better?
Well, we're working hard to do better than that, but realistically, not knowing, last spring and in the summer with the issues that we've had here, it greatly affected golfers. I mean, when I had people come in and say, I'm not coming back, I can't get a hot dog, I can't get a beer on the golf course, I don't know to what extent that's going to affect us next year. And that's where these numbers came from.
Right.
So I hope it's not as bad as that. And we're working hard. I mean, all winter long, we worked hard last year, but now I'm getting ready to go to these trade shows. We're working hard to offset that. And hopefully we can make that up.
So the maintenance increase is something you're more certain of. That's not a lot of assumptions in there. The revenue is affected by your assumptions that what happened here will impact revenues in the coming year.
Yes.
The maintenance increase numbers are not based on a bunch of this, not based on a major assumption like that. That's more realistic. That's based on more tangible knowledge, right?
Yeah, that's just, I think the biggest difference was labor, correct?
Yeah.
It was just labor.
So of the two numbers there at least, you have, your assumption is driving the 78, which may hopefully be a little more pessimistic than reality when it comes about.
Hopefully.
Okay, that's all I wanted to try to say of those three numbers. So the 201 is an extremely conservative number based on an assumption that we had some hiccups here that are going to continue to affect us
Yes.
next year.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about, and that's how we came up with those numbers.
Yeah.
And if the weather, if we have better weather, it could be, we could blow it out of the water too.
We could, sure.
Okay, just from an administrative side, I think everybody that had questions, everybody got a chance to ask questions, even in the audience. We got 10 minutes, want to touch on golf maintenance a little bit, or if you're all done, but if you all have more questions, feel free. I'm gonna ask JB if you need it, because you can have more questions, another 5 or 10 minutes. But first, I'd like to talk just quick on golf maintenance, if you're all okay. Is everybody good on that? And again, if you have more questions, but everybody got a chance to talk within the allotted time. If you want more questions, feel free now.
I would just make a recommendation for next year, when everybody's doing this. These 3 pages, the way you broke it out, give you a good overview of what each one, but then you're combining them all, so you'd have a 4th sheet that would just be the total, correct?
Okay, so again, with golf maintenance, just like what I did before, just an overview question, a couple questions. JB, I'll leave it to you, if Andre or whatever. My question is gonna be more along the line of controls of what we have back there. I just wanna make sure that Andre, John, you have everything that you need. There's a lot of equipment back there. There's a lot of chemicals, fertilizers, whatever. Do we have the proper controls or locks or whatever that you need within a decent budget to control everything you have back there? What do you need, or are you good?
As of right now, we're sitting pretty good.
You mean to secure things?
Yeah, I don't know what else to say, so that stuff doesn't walk out the door.
That's what.
Does he have what he needs in order for him to manage it, or John, JB? That's all I'm asking. There's a lot of equipment back there, there's a lot of chemicals at times. I just wanna make sure that they have what they need and/or process, or I wanna talk a couple other things. So, I'm sorry, I didn't hear his answer.
Yes.
You do have, okay. Go ahead, George.
No, I was just gonna say, to inventory, to know what's in, who's checking it out, who's taking what, and
Yes.
I was just following what
Yeah.
what you said.
So then, with that said, and that's good, with that said, as far as from the finance side or whatever, inventory controls, inventory counts, Steve, I know you know, whatever, on what type of basis? Do we do it quarterly? Do we do it at the end of the year? Go in there and count inventory, or work with them to ensure, huh?
Monthly.
Inventory.
Monthly, somebody goes in there and counts it monthly,
Pro
just,
shop, golf maintenance, chemicals, every month.
Does finance get involved with that monthly, or it's just them, and just on their end, just on their
They
end?
take it down there and then they send it up, we look at it and then we vote it.
Okay. You guys comfortable with that and everything? Okay.
And in between, I think it's all lodged up.
In between is what?
It's all lodged up.
I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure, and glad I got the answer I got. Okay. If you guys have more questions or whatever on the detail, JB said, you know, we'll go an extra whatever.
Are there any plans to, try to address the appearance of the cart shed
Yeah, we,
in this budget?
in this budget, no, it was set up before, a prior manager had it set up, they were gonna give it a facelift essentially. Part of it's got the rotted wood, the paneling was gonna be replaced and cover some other stuff up. I'm not sure if that's gonna happen before the end of April or not.
I would say that because golfers generally start out on the first tee, and they ride past that golf cart shed, that just for appearance sake, if somebody, if we could spend the money and the plus 42,000 in maintenance, go in and somehow spray paint the outside, or just, I don't know what you can do, I don't really even know.
Plant some trees.
Huh?
I'll address that this way.
Might be the line of the day.
I've been developing a punch list, if you would,
Yeah.
for spring cleaning, and that will be on there.
Okay.
If it's not already.
We had one of the nice things was the yard outside of the repair between the first green and the second tee was cleaned up very well. And then we had that landscaping of all those trees, but as always happens, not all of them survive. Were they replaced by the vendor, those dead trees?
No, we just took them up and discarded them.
Okay, but did we try to get the vendor to come back and replace them?
I don't have that answer.
Who would have that answer?
Maybe Eddie?
Eddie.
Eddie Wells.
JB? I don't know if you want to repeat it for JB.
I was saying that we had, for all the cleanup of the yard, which was really nice between the first green and the second tee, after they cleaned it all up, we paid to have a number of trees planted around there, so it eventually would screen that off. And immediately, within about a year, a fair number of them
Yeah.
passed away and went to heaven. But generally, if a landscape, I think if we have a landscaper and we pay, I had a contract, maybe the contract said, you know, they'll guarantee the trees for a year, and replace them within a year if they're, die. But
Yeah, there's-
Andre said all we've done is pull them out and get rid of them so they're not an eyesore. That's a good step.
I have two questions. Going back to the golf cart, or the barn. I mean, slapping a little paint on it is, in my opinion, not.
Waste of money.
Yeah, it's a waste of money. And I guess, that's really, I guess, something for the board. Where is that in replacement, in your mind, in regard to replacing that place? Because I don't think, slapping up a little more siding on it
Yeah.
and.
Did that take a detour when we were with the plans of this building?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was to be done, and then there was a plan evidently back before we decided to just renovate as it is, was to have the carts underneath.
That's another.
And then that didn't happen.
Right.
So I don't think we ever went back and dealt with the question
So are we going,
of
in
replacing the cart.
in your work and getting, the bids and everything for upstairs?
That won't be part of that. Will not be a part of that
Well,
project.
can it be?
No.
Why not?
Um,
Well, look, if we're gonna do the work over here, we all agree that,
Right.
you know, this is a great course. This place needs a lot of work to it, and why not get it all done at one time if we can get it done and be done with it? That, you know, if I hear things
Right.
correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, the experience is what is gonna make this place, you know, either break even or make a few bucks. And part of that is this whole operation here, putting the deck on out front, you know. How many
Oh, yeah,
times
it's
do you
a
come out here?
complete picture,
Right,
but
why not?
I would say adding that to the phases of this whole complex, yeah, that would be a part of it.
Well, I
But
would,
it's not gonna be before that second
well,
story.
I understand that, but why can't it be all done at the same time? Are we talking about a number that's gonna push it to a referendum, or?
I hope not.
No, it wouldn't be all that to
Well,
do it,
no.
do it all.
Well, even if it
The
did,
answer to
that's
that
not a
is no.
reason to consider yes or no.
Okay.
Maybe it's
well,
how
so
bad
my-
is that?
It's-
Bottom line is, does the cart barn need to be replaced?
Okay. So-
When, that's to be determined.
Okay, so
But-
my point is, if we're going through all this stuff, we're gonna be focusing here, why don't we at least have the projections and a recommendation, and then it's up to the board to decide, we're just gonna do the country club, or we're gonna do them both and get them all done. Because again, I think what we're selling here is gonna be the experience, and throwing a little paint on a place, in my mind, is a waste of money. That's just, I would ask if you would consider that.
John, I've been.
And I have one more question.
Okay.
My second question is regarding the drainage. And obviously, and Andre, I'm sure you're aware of the spots out there where we do have some drainage issue. I mean, you can look at 18 out here, the left side is, you know, I mean, there are places, and I'm sure you know where they are. What do we have in mind for dealing with those places that are, you know, really a problem?
Prior to this month, we had went out the last 2 months and addressed some of the drainage. We put drains on 17, 9. I think we did a little bit on 8, 16. So we're at 14.
Are you anticipating more?
Yes, we're not done.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the little stuff.
Yep.
We're not talking about the whole drainage plan that we stopped doing.
That's what.
Well, I understand
I think
that.
that's what you're maybe referring to.
Right, and again, you know, I'm looking at the total experience. This year was a little more difficult year than I ever remember down here as, you know, the course being as wet as it was for a lot of different reasons. And that's part of the experience too, guys, you know, you can't go out there. I don't mind cart path only, but when you get out there and you can't stand because the ground is so wet, you know, that's a problem. And that, again, goes into the total experience of playing golf here and our revenues, in my mind. So if you think you've got it, those locations pinpointed,
Yep.
you know, the sooner the better, I think.
I have a question. I've been playing golf here for 20 years. How bad is that golf cart barn? I don't even notice it, much less that it's in bad shape. How bad does it look?
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad? Off the first tee. I don't care about inside, because I never go inside, but I never even noticed the barn.
That and the driving range, it's pretty bad.
That right?
Any way you look at it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, okay. It's pretty, didn't realize that. Never
In
seen
your,
it.
in the maintenance worksheet, drainage, you had a forecast for this year was $1,070. There's $0 for the next budget. Is that drainage, is that maintenance of drainage ditches?
It's a little bit of ditches, but it's also us adding in drains wherever needed. My goal is to try to drain any surface water within 24 hours, get it off the golf course. And what I found out is there's some inventory that we have in stock, pipe, stone, that really is no cost to us. The only cost would be labor.
Well, I guess along that line, labor would be involved in, from the road that goes back to Hingham, or I guess that is Hingham, up to the bridge, Route 90 bridge, there's that ditch that runs along there that
Yeah.
tends to get filled up quite a bit, which would impede any flow, of water, which would impede capacity
Yeah.
plus flow.
That was done. That's
Well-
done. That ain't even on the horizon. That was done.
It was, but my question,
3
Andre, I
years
guess
ago.
would, I'm sorry?
3 years ago.
Right, it was, the ditch was, is it maintained?
Well, it's-
That's all I'm
Public
asking.
Works
it's up to
maintains all the
Public Works
ditches.
maintains that. but
Okay,
that-
so they're
that-
cleaning it out, because I know one end's got a lot of reeds, and stuff. It just, there's not much water flow through there.
Yeah, well, that ditch is owned by the state, first of all. But we
Oh,
do,
really?
yeah, but we do, Public Works does clean it out. It's one of the main arteries,
Okay.
so,
Well, I guess what, if you have zero money in the budget for that this year, what does that mean?
well, that's a Public Works cost, not a maintenance, not.
Does that mean Public Works is not gonna
His,
do
his
it?
cost is pipe and things like that that he was talking about, not
No.
sending somebody out there to go do that. It's just the actual physical pipes and drain covers and things like that. That's
Oh,
what that,
that's what that
that's
is
what that
for.
line item is
So that's
for.
for equipment rather than the
Correct.
actual labor, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So Marty, anything,
I just want to add, because it's confusing. The drainage in this budget, golf, is not the ditch drainage that we deal with in Ocean Pines.
Yeah,
It is the golf course drainage project that was approved in, anybody remember, 10 years ago?
Yes.
And it was every year or so, we budgeted, I'm gonna guess 350 to 450, 350,000 to 450,000 to do 2 holes.
yeah,
Yes.
And that's what we were doing. I think we've done about 8 or 9 or 7, I don't know.
Yeah.
We're not half done, I don't think.
Hey,
I just have a question on that. That drainage and all that, which is very important, that's not just for the golf course, that's needed also for the houses, yes?
That
Just
was
yes
a
or no?
great way to spread the pain. But yes, it affected about 1,400 golf front houses.
Okay, so it's for houses also, not just the golf?
Yeah,
That's
but-
all I wanna hear.
Absolutely.
All right, that's all I'm
But
asking.
the majority of it was the play at the golf course and the condition of the golf course, because when the interlinks turned over,
Well-
we accepted it and the drainage plan, it quite frankly didn't work.
You would, even if there wasn't a golf course here, you would've needed that. We would've needed that drainage, come on.
Yeah,
It's my opinion.
I'm not blaming the golf course,
Okay.
I'm trying to explain the history of how
Okay,
much.
no, no, and which I wanted to
You'll
do.
know when
Okay.
there's golf drainage in there, it's expensive.
Guys, I know how much, I know how much it costs, and I know what's done and what's not done, but you're not gonna drain that golf course if it has no place to go.
Correct.
And that's all I was asking.
And I believe we need to finish the majority of that golf
Yes.
drainage
And
plan.
maintain what has been done.
We're not famous for maintenance, but yes, of course it has to be maintained.
Okay.
Thank you for the
Just put it on the
improvements to
table.
the public restrooms where you put in the
Oh.
units for air conditioning, heat, the public restrooms on the course, and the hand dryers that blow my skin on my knuckles up to my armpits. But I get dry.
And that was Jay, right off the bat, thank you, Jay, everybody. Oh, Dick, go ahead, and then I can make a question.
John, I got a follow-up on a comment that you made when John asked you the shape of the storage shed for the cars and things. You said it was pretty bad.
Yep.
Is there a safety concern there?
No, I think it's safe.
here's
It's
the
just-
door.
It's-
The
Well,
door was-
that's in process, but
Right.
it's safe. It's just ugly.
It was
It's just-
designed
There
for
was-
electric
wasn't
cars,
there-
and we got gas cars, it's got all that, it still has this stuff in there, infrastructure for powering up electric
Yeah.
cars, right?
It hasn't
Ted,
been
can you-
maintained.
Ted,
Well,
can you,
the external side of it, through the years, it's just, it's probably time that the outside paneling, it's just T111 paneling and such, that lasts a while, but once it covers the wash pad, and when you're washing 75 carts every day, several times a day, through however many years, it's just gonna start to deteriorate, and that's what needs to be replaced more than anything. And then the venting up on top, but, same thing, it's that building, I have no idea how old that is, it's pretty old, but.
Ted Maroney was involved. Ted, weren't you involved with the inspection of that a couple years ago? Can you,
It hasn't been maintained for 8 zillion years.
can you give the specifics as to what the issues
There's a lot
were?
of structural problems inside. It's not in danger of collapse today, but it needs to get on the radar to be fixed. The biggest thing when it gets fixed, it needs to take into account if we're gonna be washing carts inside and doing other things so that you don't have exposed wood to water
you
guys-
think
You
Does
can't
this
be
budget-
dressed up in any way.
Does
sorry?
Does this budget account for maintenance and cleaning and care of the washrooms and the bathrooms on the golf course in here?
Yes.
Yeah,
I hope it's better than it was, John, okay, that's all I'm saying. As you're aware, that's one of the major complaints we get through the membership.
Mhm.
and particularly the ladies, right?
Who's up? You got a question?
I was just gonna ask, do you have are you planning on doing a study or something? Did I cut in front of you?
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm
A
sorry.
study just to find out what, you're talking about a punch list you're putting together. Maybe something expanded beyond a punch list so that in next year's budget,
Oh, that's, yeah, the punch list is totally different from next year's budget.
I assumed it was, and I assumed you have financing for the punch list?
Yeah, it's within the within the budget, it's nothing,
But you are looking at
nothing
doing
crazy or big, but there's a lot of stuff that we can do.
There's a little
to
stuff that adds
make
up.
a ton of difference.
The comment about somehow maybe just for this season dressing up the cart barn somehow on the external appearance. Are we saying that I know Larry doesn't think it's worth it, but I do for aesthetics if it's just painting and maybe a couple pieces of wood being replaced. Is that asking, is that doable before the season opens up? Come out of this budget, we got a big loss already.
Well, we're gonna,
New hand dryers?
we're gonna,
That's another 10.
we're gonna check with Eddie at Public Works, 'cause that was a project list. I don't know where he's at with that.
The punch list is covered in this year's budget.
And that's one of the conditions to beautify that building.
We're gonna do a lot of interesting little things between now and Memorial Day.
Okay, all right, good.
So you good? So I have a question on the greens I guess, I think it was in golf maintenance, I'm not sure, whatever. I saw something about fans. Did I see that right?
Yes.
Was that made it in there? I can't remember now.
That's in the.
Is that
Two
replacement?
fans or something?
18.4 in golf maintenance, you've got a variety of,
Tools.
capital pieces. A
So,
couple
but-
fans, radios, utility carts,
Right.
mowers.
Right, I just want to focus on the fans right now. So, all right, so I did see it. So the fans, I know we had a situation with the greens. I heard some stuff. I mean, is the fans are going to help that? Is that why we have that?
It's two greens,
Take care of the greens. You got two fans out there.
7 and 14.
So that would basically get the air in there and all that. That's what that's for. And I know, I believe I saw one my first year I was ever here, a fan or something. Yeah, so that's
They
what
had
that
them on
helps.
both greens at one point.
Yeah, they did. But be careful which direction you face the one on 7 there, you know?
So,
I just thought we'd lengthen the course a little bit.
Sauerkraut factory.
so the other question
Turn
on
it up
that,
high.
okay, so we're moving in the right direction, spending some money. That should definitely help the greens. What else happened there? Was that it or whatever?
Coach Allen and the rest.
Was there something with the mowers, not with the mowers,
Well-
settings or something? Are we good with that going forward? Or do you
Yes,
have
we
what you
are.
need or whatever?
Yes.
Just a nit, we got 10 radios for 5,000 total. That's 500 apiece. Shouldn't they be expensed?
That's always an interesting question. If you have multiple things that add up more than add up to a capital piece, are they capital or are they operating, keeping that?
I think the administration of making this a capital item is not worth the effort.
I respectfully disagree. But
Okay? But anyway, I'm just asking, we passed a guideline to up our capital limit. This is
Right.
$500 apiece.
Right.
We also talked about combinations of,
I'm sorry?
we also talked, I mean, if you bought 100 new computers and they're only $1,500 apiece, you're gonna capitalize that.
Yeah.
What do you say, we would?
That was the argument for the spoons at the restaurant at 90 cents a piece.
But Art's correct, and that's where that argument comes from when you're buying that type of thing, and it does have a shelf life.
You know.
And they have been depreciated, and
Huh?
the money is theoretically in the,
Well, theoretically, if you
replacement
ain't,
reserve.
I wish they wouldn't keep saying
theoretically, if you
theoretically,
charge
though.
maintenance, you get the money back right away rather than waiting 5 years to get it back. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We gotta refine our capital guidelines and our capitalization guidelines to include that kind of situation.
Okay, so JB, John, and Andre gave us an extra 10 minutes on it. I believe everybody's had a voice. Anybody else, anything else before we take a few minute break anywhere? Anybody?
Do we have any recommendations for the budget for this? I mean, we talked about a lot of this, that, a lot of drilling down into what they're doing, but
You have any?
no. I like it. I think they've done a good job. I wish you guys great success.
Positive words of encouragement to beat revenues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would expect it. I'd
Yeah.
prefer to see you raise the revenues in the budget, to be honest with you, because
And, never mind.
And again,
not my
only-
call. I just told you what I'd prefer.
Well,
Mine-
anytime you push the revenues,
You know,
and if you don't meet it, then you sort of lean yourself into it again.
I'd rather
Yeah.
aim high and miss the target by a little bit than aim low and hit it.
Well, the problem with that, Marty, the problem with that, Marty, is in the past when they've done that, they've also raised the expenses.
JB's right, because we haven't met our revenue projection for the last 6 years, and last year was our best years, we only missed about 109,000.
And my only comment would be that, again, as I said, I think we ought to be looking at the cart barn.
Agreed.
And also the, I think the drainage is a very important issue on the spot stuff, you know.
He agrees too, so.
So it's like if John beats revenue by 150 grand next year, he gets a cart barn, is that what?
Honestly, that's the way it should work, but yeah. So anyway, look, they want a summary. Totally agree with everything that was in the budget, how you guys approached it, your assumptions and everything. That's across the board with all the questions and everything. One point would be, which was probably going to be a comment, is about the car.
Okay.
But
Let's see what we
otherwise,
can do between now and then.
great presentation, guys. Definitely, to me, it's definitely moving in the right direction. Thank you very
So
much.
when are the free golf lessons coming out?
It's tomorrow, right?
Last weekend you missed it. That's right.
We'll take a
Have you
5-minute
done a
break
beat the
before
pro?
food and bev.
Wait,
Yeah, definitely.
all right, we're gonna add
Got food and beverage up. JB, just before we started food and beverage, while we were on doing golf and the Tern's Grill and everything, I got 18 emails on question on Tern's Grill. Are we gonna have Stella beer in the Tern's Grill?
I have no idea.
I hope we do, because I got 18 emails to have. Oh, hold on. All 18 emails are all from the same golfer.
But I also heard he's picking up the first round every day he's here.
Anyway, it is a popular draw, so.
Buy free, baby.
Anyway. Okay, so.
No promises for this weekend.
Thank you,
got it
JB.
now, don't you?
Thank you.
Got it.
Nah, something happened with it, but he knows. Okay, so with that, we're at the, I believe it's the last, if I find my, I got it. Food and beverage, John Bailey.
That's it.
So, I guess that food and beverage is gonna include Beach Club, Yacht Club, and Tern's Grill, or we already covered Jeff?
Or sort of covered Tern's Grille, so Beach Club and Yacht Club.
Okay,
Again, at the time of budget creation, I had to present it as, we're doing this in-house this next season, okay?
I understand.
As things have progressed, the board had asked me to, review all the F&B operations, present a recommendation to them. That is in the process and will be to the board, at this January 27th meeting that they have here in a couple of weeks. There will be a recommendation to them about that. And that would change this from potentially being in-house to being with a management consultant or direct lease. And so that would change this entirely. So again, this was put together based upon, we're gonna be continuing to do this in-house. You'll note that the cost of goods has been adjusted back to more realistic or more proper numbers, I'll say it that way. Revenue is, we've tried to go with something that was much more conservative, and goes back to the first statement I made a couple of days ago of correcting and adjusting a broken budget, where we had revenue streams that were way out of kilter from what we've done.
Hold on, Marty, let him
Yeah,
finish.
but
I'm sorry.
when you're talking about the revenues,
Marty, let him just finish and then
I
we'll,
just wanna know where we are.
you're gonna have your shot. You're gonna have your shot.
Then, and I lost my train of thought, sorry.
Corrected budget.
Yes, so fixing a broken budget, particularly with food and beverage, with the expectations of what our revenue targets were for this past year. And bringing them back into line with prior year actuals, and anticipating, when we start up again, with everything, particularly after May 1, we're dealing with not just, the past number issue, but the lowered expectation and how to recover a market share, of people that are disappointed and have low expectations of what the Yacht Club and the Beach Club have been presented with this past year. So we got to get over that hurdle too. So factoring all those things in impacts that anticipated revenue. So again, conservative on the revenue, expenses are more than I would like them to be, and more than we probably all think they should be. But this is this corrective year, if you would, and again, it will probably change in between now and when the board has its work sessions in February.
Let me just, and everybody's gonna have their voice here, I just need the dates again. Did you said you would be able to have something by the 20?
I have two proposals in hand. I'm waiting to get the third one, and make that recommendation to the board before their January 27th board meeting.
Because, so we'll have everything in time to meet the resolutions,
Right.
the 90 days and all that, and
Yeah.
you're comfortable and confident on that, and
Yeah, if think about the calendar for a second, if you were to, and I mentioned this, and I wish I'd printed it out again, a couple months ago, when we were looking at, I think it was the October board meeting, it was either, if we're gonna do a full-blown RFP for outsourcing and everything else, it had to been approved at that meeting, because we had to write an RFP, we would've had to get everybody to agree to that RFP, put it out by December 1st. You're not gonna get a response back in December, you would get it back after the holidays, which would be about now, and then you wouldn't be able to vote on it at the January 27th meeting, you wouldn't be voting on it till the February meeting, or sometime with a special meeting, sometime in there by the board, and then they could get started middle of February, first part of March. For Memorial Day opening, on a big thing like this, that you just don't have the time to get there. The best we could do is, let's get these, review that, get some recommendations in, proposals in, and we at least have 3, so we can at least pursue that. And that's what the board will be hearing from me here shortly. And that would indeed change what we're looking at. So, I hate to say that, you know, this is a sort of a state of flux, but we gotta deal with what we gotta deal with. So again, going back to September, October, November, how do you prep this up? It's okay, if everything else falls through, we gotta plan on doing it in-house this season, one more time at least, and that's why the numbers are what the numbers are.
That would, and I was thought you guys can, that's actually what I was gonna ask you. What if this other idea or plan that you have didn't come through by the 27th? Where would you fall back? You just answered that, which is this.
Right.
So then that's something we have to consider on whether or not we review this today, how far we go. Or, I know we have something, a presentation with the membership on the, I have it here somewhere, the 24th or something.
Next Saturday, the
Next Saturday, the
20th.
20th. So odds are that would probably be the same type of discussion of whatever we decide today, similar, and how much review. So I'm gonna leave it up to the team, how much they wanna do on this. This is a fallback plan, so as soon as I finish, Gene already has his hand up, so I'll let Gene then jump in, Larry.
Considering this may become reality, we would affect, all the property owners by the loss that's projected here for the yacht club. I would urge you then, as a fallback plan, to drop the cost of labor closer to the industry standard, which is 30%, 30 cents on the dollar revenue. We are now close to 60 cents on the dollar revenue. I know 30 cents is a big jump from 60 cents on the dollar revenue. I would say make a compromise. Take it in between, 45 cents on a dollar.
It was 44 for this year's budget, why wouldn't it still be 44?
He's got it at 69 cents on the dollar.
2018 budget was 44%.
2018 budget.
Yeah.
59% now, and it makes no sense.
He is reducing, it is being reduced for 2019.
It's 59 cents on the dollar.
59% right now.
If you go to 218, it's,
No, you're just talking about labor. is what you're
I'm just
about.
talking about
just
labor.
labor, yeah.
So labor's budgeted at 30% for food regular for the, well, I'm at the beach club, excuse me.
I'm talking
You're gonna, yacht club total payroll is actually about $10,000 more than it was actually in 2015.
But the point is, it's 59% of sales.
It's 59%
Correct.
of sales, and you can't, the standard is 30%. I don't know why we don't try to go better and go back to what we tried to do in 2016. We actually achieved 44% on the revenue dollars.
2018.
Huh?
18 budget too, same thing in 18
It's
budget.
also
But we didn't, we're not achieving it in 18.
Then
That's what it was
15.
supposed to do. We got to proceed
Yeah,
with
yeah,
18.
right,
You know,
then
18
that's
is-
what the assessment was based
Yeah, but
on.
you know 18 is a disaster area, okay?
Yeah.
If we have another 18, we might as well just shut the place down.
Yeah, so we achieved 44% as an actual in 2016. I'm just saying, if this has a chance of becoming the assessment producing document, that the board's gonna approve. I don't think the board should approve a budget for the yacht club where the labor cost is 59 cents on a dollar of revenue. You got the cost of sales in line, it's 31 cents on a dollar of
Take it to
revenue.
44%, you take $238,000 off the loss.
There you go.
100 grand.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's 28 PPOs, $28 PPOs.
And then try to run the damn thing at 45 cents on a dollar of labor costs.
Agreed.
I have a
We all
question.
agree.
I have a-
Hey, Billy.
I have a question too. And we
Okay.
talked about this a little bit the other day, JB. Regardless of which way we go here, and let me jump on the third rail. Is it your intention to keep the place open year-round with, if we go to a management company or if we do it in-house? That's, I know Marty, I know Marty would agree we should shut it down, but I wanna know what your plan is in either way.
The plan would be to keep it open. There would be, what I, forgive me for my news, most places shut down for a period of time, but not for 4 or 5 months. There's a handful that are open, during the month of January.
And none of them had a payroll that was as big as ours in October.
I don't disagree. But, so for operations, if we want to change that, again, I'm dealing with some history that I may or may not be accurate on. For years, with the old yacht club, it was closed after Labor Day.
Up till '88.
Yeah. And then we changed that as a community, and we were open year-round. And there was certainly plenty of shouting when we went from 5 days to 3.
Well, from an operational standpoint, and again, I'm trying to look at it from the business perspective, the losses that we're gonna incur could be eliminated, I think, if we looked at shutting the place down, maybe even after the New Year's Eve party in January. My own personal feeling is I'm not a big proponent of that, but if I was running this place, that's what I would have to look at. So, if the loss numbers are already baked into this budget, with the understanding that we're gonna keep the place open, then we now get to another policy decision as to whether or not we're gonna do that, or we're gonna try to run it. And I guess maybe the one thing we should talk about are what are the positives and negatives to both. What's gonna be the negative if we shut it down after January 1st and reopen May 1st? From a staffing standpoint, from talent retention standpoint, those type of issues.
Well, Larry, I think as long as we have an option, which is being provided now here, and ultimately, maybe an option will be upstairs, so that you won't have that huge albatross and its associated costs, that I think would be okay. I think people would buy it, because people who complain about shutting down the yacht club, I don't see them flocking down there to buy stuff either, okay? There's nobody there a large part of the time during the early part of the year. So if we have this place for those people who are living here full-time and upstairs eventually when that gets fixed, I think that would work.
Yeah.
And that's the way it worked up until '88.
Yeah. There's an element to remember about whether it's general food and beverage operations versus the banquet side of things. We do have, forget how many different ones it was between that. We didn't have any in January scheduled, thankfully, but we have 1 or 2 in February and several during the month of March that we're having to readjust for those clients. So there are people who have off-season, if you would, events, but that's separate from your regular dining issue. And that could still be covered.
Yeah, that could be managed, right? I mean,
Right,
if
yeah,
you-
that could be managed.
Have a place that could be closed, but you could manage for
Right.
bunkers, okay.
Right.
Well, as part of this and that was one of the other issues I wanted to get to was, as part of this management, if we go with a vendor, an outdoor manager, would they take over the banquet operation, and it would be their responsibility, once a banquet's booked, you know, they bring in the cooks, they bring in the food, the whole deal? I mean, would they take care of that, or are we still doing that?
We'd still be, a management consultant is not going to bring 30 people with them. This would be one or two type, and consulting to train staff and everything else. They would be responsible for hiring and training the people that are on our payroll. And manage.
Running.
And
Hold on, I
run.
got, I'm.
Correct.
So, now that we're back on the payroll, first of all, I think to a person on here, we agree with what Gene said in that percentage. Taking a step back
All right.
on that. Here's, and yet you
Target's
can't.
45%, right?
Yeah, or I'm gonna let Marty talk about, right, I'm gonna let Marty talk about the industry too, but at least that. But I just wanna go back to try to support what we're saying here and everything. And anybody correct me wherever. We had food and beverage, we then put everything all under one. Are you saying down the road that Beach Club and Yacht Club will all be managed by this one, so it'll still be under one? Or will they be separate? Will this
That's sort of
management company
where we
just
may
be
be
Yacht
moving
Club?
to, yes.
Two separate?
No, so-
One
One.
for the two, okay, that's fine. But it just seemed to me, what we had this year was because we put everything under one, that we had this layer of management, a couple of layers of management in there. And I just would like to see, to understand, did you just repeat that again in this budget? Because it looks like you did, because I don't understand how we would need all that management going forward. I don't even understand how we needed it this year. The amount of overtime, does somebody analyze the overtime that was up there and the cost for that?
We've taken care of the.
Okay, so all that in there, so even with all that, you gave us the same 59% or whatever, because there has to be savings there.
Right.
There has to be. So,
I mean, look at the line 435 under the Yacht Club. You can see the overtime's next.
Is the,
so let me just finish, all right, so that's right off the bat with that, and as far as the opening and the revenue, that's another deal, but it just seemed to me with the amount of management, there was so much management. There was so much management, but yet, fill in the blanks, but.
Nobody managed to manage.
I didn't say that, but something has to be done differently.
Anything
I did
else
not say
is
that.
the definition of insanity.
So anyway, so we're also backing up where we say that, like Gene just said, at least the 44, if not better. I know Marty has some stats,
right,
benchmarking
and I
stats.
have one more before we go to Marty, because if we, from a budgetary standpoint, if the board agrees, and your recommendation is to lease to put the management out, not lease it out, how does that, I know it's all in flux, but do you see the benefit from a cost basis to putting the management outside? And is it gonna have a positive impact on whatever budget is redone here? And for whatever cost it's gonna be, I have no idea what it's gonna cost to have someone else manage our operations.
Right.
Is it just gonna be another lump sum on
Right,
top of what
that
we're
was
already
actually my
doing?
question, right, that's actually the question I was getting at too, was, let's say management, just in general, was costing I'm just using numbers, $500, for example. Are we now if this is gonna cost us, and this is where I was getting, if that cost for this management company, or whatever it is, would be $200, then we'd be left with only the 300. It's not baked on, and that's what Larry's getting at, and that was actually where I was getting at.
It's not added to this number.
That's right.
I understand that, but, and the next step then is, if we do that, is it going to have a positive impact on the
Bottom line?
on the budget that will come forward? In other words, if we get a wash out of it and the management and operation of the facilities improves, which would mean quality of the food, quality of the service, all of that improves, then I would say, yeah, wash is fine. But I would hope that if we're gonna lease out or I keep saying lease, if we're going to outsource the management, that's gonna help reduce cost of sales, cost of labor.
Yes,
And
we do all those things.
And more importantly, improve the satisfaction of the customers.
Correct.
Okay.
Would you expect in any of your scenarios that you're gonna present, where we don't manage it, do you have in your scenarios a case where the yacht club produces a profit?
I would be cautious in this first year.
Does that mean no or yes?
I would be cautious. I don't really know. We have created such, I was talking about it earlier in my intro remarks about the food and beverage. We've lost customers, we've lowered the expectation, dissatisfaction was high. How do we regain that market share and expand it? I don't know that we can do that, no matter who's in charge, in this first year.
You can't.
So the likelihood is, even if we come up with an outside management or something other than we're managing it, we're gonna still be budgeting for a loss.
Yes.
And would the loss be substantially less than the 338,000 you're looking at for the yacht club this year? Or would it be around the same?
I think it would be less than this 338 would be less than that.
Okay.
With this scenario. But I wouldn't say, okay, we're gonna go from a negative to a zero in this first year. I don't think
But you
that's,
expect that the
I don't think that's
subsidy,
realistic.
the homeowner subsidy and the assessment would drop if, given it's outside. In any of your outside scenarios, you're saying you would budget such that the homeowner subsidy would not be the same as 338, it would be something less.
Yes.
But that's still a guess, though.
That's still a guess, particularly this first year. Like I said, it's, you know, when you think, you know, we're starting, you know, this budget's based off of May 1 through April of next year, and so.
Well, let me turn the question around. You don't expect with an outside management that the loss would be more?
No.
Okay.
I have my hand. I just want to make sure.
We may see a reduction in that loss, but to turn it around and go in the opposite direction, you know, to a profit side of it,
1 year.
that's not gonna happen that first year.
Well, we're confident won't be in.
Unless you close it in the wintertime.
Well,
And then that could happen almost automatically.
Okay, I just want to go back to make sure it was clear in what I was saying, and nothing else. The cost of the management there, I just want to make sure, and the management I felt was wider, but maybe, you know, beach club, yacht club, Tern's Grille, whatever. Are we shrinking that? It sounds like we're shrinking it a little bit of what management would have to do. And then we had a cost for what our management was. And I'm only talking about the cost, nothing else on management. That cost will then, if we have a management company, be embedded in there, and I just want to double check, not included on top of that. And there could be some type of savings just on the
Yes.
cost. That's all I was talking about, management, nothing else.
Yes.
Some observations more than anything else. We've tried this scenario with the golf course with two different companies and subsequently took it back ourselves. I don't know exactly why all that happened, but my concern is if you're gonna hire a expert consultant to come in to manage the two facilities, that he or she be given a free enough hand, there's no interference in how they should run the damn place. If you're hiring them, let them run it. The board, yourself, or customers, residents, shouldn't be telling them how the hell to run it. We can make suggestions, but let them run it and manage it themselves, because that's why you're hiring the expert. I just have concerns, though, that, you know, like I said, we did this with the golf course, two different companies, it didn't quite work out. So, I just have a little caution about how it is.
And we've done it at the yacht club over the years, 3 or 4 different companies.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Management companies?
Yeah.
I mean,
Marriott, Canteen, I think there was
Before my
another
time,
one.
I guess.
Was there another?
Didn't work.
That
That
was
was
a
not
lease.
Before my time.
That was a lease.
They went bankrupt, you know,
Well,
so.
they went bankrupt, but it was a
John?
good year for us.
But you see the concern.
Yeah.
What,
Yeah, I'm done.
what's the probability of not having one of these people who are quoting on the work not happening? Just, you can't find one. What's the probability of having to do this worst-case scenario, do you think?
I would say low. I think it's a low probability that we won't go that direction.
So chances are this definitely needs to be revisited once you gather that intelligence and how that person who's gonna run it wants to organize it and so forth. Secondly, if this was the worst-case scenario, and we touched on this, but we probably need to maybe define it better. If we were to close down the yacht club for 3 months, at least, let's say you close it for 3 months, we should at least know what that would do to this overall loss, what that number might be if it was closed for 3 months.
You wanna know that?
Well, you can subtract from the.
Yeah,
from
I mean,
our-
all you gotta do is,
Yeah.
He's closer to the budgets than I am, so.
well, and this is history. Just based on history, it costs us, on the average, over the last 15 years, $210,297.82 in the off-season loss. We have never,
What's that off-season, your definition?
November, December, January, February, March, April, May.
You're shutting it.
Sorry, April.
You're shutting in
November through April,
Yeah.
okay?
and opening in when, April?
We have
April.
never, ever, ever in the history of the yacht club, going back recent history, 15 years, made a penny in November, December, January, February, March, or April. Ever.
So that'd be October
It's all right.
31 through April 30? Is that what you're getting at?
It's whatever Art bases the controller report on, I guess. It's,
I would certainly hope that if we hired the right person to run the place, that he would be focusing on at least a break even in the current year, but more or less looking towards year 2, building up goodwill, saying, I can make this place profitable. It should be profitable because you have a beautiful facility, a great infrastructure, a great location, and you don't have the expenses that anybody competing might have. They have to pay taxes, they have to pay a mortgage or rent or whatever. Here, you just have to provide good service and should be able to make money. So I would hope that the goal would be that in year 1, we'd work towards a break even with the new manager, but certainly be in a nice situation in year 2. You know, it seems like it's not, of course, I haven't lived here, so I don't know all the history and all the years. Obviously, we've lost money, but it seems to me, it seems pretty reasonable. We should be able to do that.
But in that case, if we're gonna have a management or an outside company come in and manage from May to November, or May to October, we're saying manage the months that we've always made a profit in, except this year. And then,
Well, I don't think
Well, that was
I don't think
Marty's
we're saying
point
that.
some time ago.
I don't think we're saying that. I think John's saying he'd like to keep the place open year-round. If a management company can run it and it be,
Yeah.
be able to,
but I'm saying,
cover
I
its
don't
costs.
think the combination, management and closing from November to April makes a lot of sense.
No, the only question about closing was if we didn't have a management company, and this is a situation we were forced to,
Yeah.
we should look at what closing is, and if it's a reasonable, if it's a good number, which it may be, we should really strongly consider that.
everybody's got an opinion. I mean, if we all agreed, only one of us would have to show
Well,
up.
mine are better than yours.
And that might be,
We all agreed, only one of us.
but I'm not looking at the Candy Mountain. I'm looking at what we've been doing.
Yeah.
The best year we've ever had in retail sales. $1,923,000 in 215. That year we lost $181,000. We cannot drag down, if we'd shut the doors September 15th and not open till the following There's a reason they call it in-season and off-season. We would have made money. It would have been a positive year. The same goes for the next year. 16, we would have made money. But we don't close, we just tinkle away $60,000, $70,000 a month. This New Year's Eve party, sold out, didn't generate $20,000 gross. Cost us $100 to get there, because we were open October and November and December in order to get to a $20,000 gross sale. Whoopee-doo. Call it an amenity, call it a business, I call it stupid.
What was that last year?
Stupid. Spend
John, do we
$100
know
grand.
what
on
our
it.
fixed costs would be to close it down? Insurance, electricity?
Yeah, there's costs
there's fixed
involved.
costs,
with-
but
with-
there-
Right,
there-
and
See the
everybody
cost
knows,
you pay at the
everybody
beach
understands.
club every year. Zip.
No.
What's it cost to keep
Well,
the
there's
beach
gotta be
club?
insurance you're paying and.
Insurance stays.
The electricity's on, you gotta keep
No,
things,
you need to keep the alarm systems wired, that's it.
yeah, just keep the heat on.
You gotta keep the heat on. I mean,
What's your biggest cost? Payroll. Bye-bye, have fun in Florida.
Now, you have some.
Say hi to the ski
You have
slopes.
some permanent staff, right?
You shouldn't.
Let me just do a time check. We got about 10 more minutes on food and beverage and pretty much that. I think we've all made our points. We're reinforcing them. If there's anything new, feel free. We got 10 minutes, but I think you reinforced those points to the GM.
I think we need to see what John ends up with in the next 2 or 3 weeks before we
And I think
argue this further.
Yes,
we
I agree.
made some key points on this
This is
budget.
fantasy
I think
right
we
now.
made
Yes,
some
it's-
key
we're just
points on
dancing.
this budget for him to adjust, to use as a comparison, and
Yeah.
like John said, if he doesn't come, but he's pretty sure he will have another alternative. So if we have any new points, that's fine. Believe me, I got your points. If I got them, I'm sure he got them.
The only thing is look at who we are competing with. I think in the past, we have tried to compete with Ocean City, and I don't think that's our competition. Competition is all local, within 589. You could walk them, most of them, between Taylor's, Southside Grill, the Mexican restaurant, Whiskers, the Novas, the Chinese place, that's your competition, especially in the off-season.
I don't believe that. I believe the competition you want to go after is the people in Ocean Pines that I see out to dinner every night at Fosto's, Fager's,
Oh, yeah.
Sunset Grill, Marlin. I bet we have more members eat at the Marlin Club than we have members eating at our yacht club.
Let me share with you a little bit of what, I've been going through this process of interacting with some of these consultant groups, and individuals as well. I will meet them at the office, I'll give them a copy of the financials, pieces, so that they have that. And then we go over to the beach club, and I'll walk them through the main floor, downstairs, upstairs. Everybody's just salivating over the view from the upstairs. Why aren't we packed for weddings every weekend? Pretty much year round even.
Used to be.
Right, so they're all just like, yeah, I love this. And then, but we're looking at infrastructure as well. And then we get in the vehicles and we drive back across to Ocean Pines, with the concept in mind of, okay, who's our audience, who's our target audience for driving revenue? If you're going to travel from the tourists and everybody else that lives that side of things, or drawing in from Berlin, Salisbury, or West OC, you've got to come across the bridge. You have one sign that says Ocean Pines, but it doesn't say anything about Yacht Club, Tern Grille, or anything else. You make your right, you go up, you go across our interesting little bridge, and then you go through the neighborhood that doesn't have any lights, around through our miniature golf tunnel, and then take a left, and you come up to a intersection at the Colonial Village, and if you catch the sign that's to the right on the bottom that says Tern Grille this way, or excuse me, the Cove, if you go straight, you're lost, because there's nothing that says anything when you get to the end of Colonial Village to say turn left. catch the left, you go around, you have a great experience, and you have good food, good service, good drinks, and have a great evening, and you come out, it's dark. Now, how do I get back to 589 to get back over to OC?
You asked the guy
And
who's
you've got
walking his dog.
500 restaurants to choose from while you're on that side of the bridge. The yacht club, when it was originally built by Boise Cascade, what was it? It was a sales pitch. Here's our view, here's your lot, sign on the dotted line, and we're out. If it was built as a restaurant to make money, it would have been built on 589. So.
Which points out our market is the year-round residents and the summer residents.
our guests.
In the Pines.
I
and our guests.
couldn't agree
Exactly.
more. Said it
So,
perfectly.
when you, and then you look at that demographic, we have A to Z. We have the folks that like the burgers and the dogs, and we have people that like the filet mignon. And everything in between.
We just moved the yacht club.
So, you know, factoring all that in, okay, if I'm a business person, and I've said this before too, the Trumps of the world are gonna say, yeah, we can make money at that. And then the finance person comes in and looks at all these specific details and say, maybe not. You know, we can do better than what Ocean Pines is doing on its own. But are we gonna, you know, just, you know, make millions at this? That's probably
So
not.
you're saying they're more likely impressed with the beach club, that they can make that really profitable?
Everybody would love the beach club
And they're
as a straight
questioning-
lease,
they're
because they're gonna
questioning
make
whether
a
or
killing
not
and
they-
they're gonna make the money.
They can maybe only do marginally, a little bit better
Right,
than marginally.
we make money at it, or will, I mean, we
I
did
mean,
before,
but
and
yeah,
that should be
Could
making
it be
money.
operated as a year-round? The building?
Beach club?
Yeah.
Not on, well, the beach club, you know, similar to, you know, you go out to Ocean City now, most everything's closed up. But, as a restaurant, you know,
Special events.
special events, yeah, you could have weddings year-round up there.
It has heat and it has insulation and yada yada.
Yes, yeah, upstairs. Upstairs part could, you know, and there are access issues, there's just steps to get upstairs. So, but anyway, that's on, and then we go from the yacht club to Terns, and then they go back and they work something up.
Okay. That brings us pretty much to our time. Does anybody have any new questions or points? If not, I'm good.
You know, you know, I would point out, you know, like on the beach club, the net, you know, the budgeted, net operating for the current budget year was twice that which the actuals that we've made in the past. So we're back to, you know, that's
We're
$120,000
back to a profit.
out of that, to get back to it.
Okay.
Curiosity, what are your open hours at the beach club in this budget? Are they like they used to be or like last year?
Like they used to be.
Not the extended hours like last year.
No, no.
No
Nope,
shoulder season and no late nights competing with secrets. We're trying to.
correct.
That was bad.
Nothing, sit down, you can get it at the counter and go.
No waitress service.
Yeah.
Are we looking at changing that license ever, that liquor license that says you gotta be an OPA member to buy liquor?
That one's with a deal, that one's through Ocean City, and there's tax sides to that. There's a lot of
Just want someone's.
pieces to that puzzle.
At least looking at, because I know the
yeah.
reason, Marty might be able to clarify, it. Right next door, Berger used to have his fancy restaurant in what's now the condos
Ocean Club.
there.
Ocean Club.
Ocean Club, and as a result of that, our liquor license was restricted.
Never happened. We never applied for
No,
one,
I'm saying,
ever in the
yeah.
history of Ocean Pines.
Oh, is that
Did
right?
we
Okay.
apply for a modification of that?
To a D?
I don't know.
According to William Esham, we never asked. And William Esham.
Oh, is that right? We
the
never
head of the
asked.
liquor control board.
Okay.
My impression was that we would, because of
The whole liquor license thing is,
Because Joe Moore said because we're not residential.
Oh, the Marty,
Marty.
Marty, what?
You asked me a question, I was trying to answer.
I
it. I'm
know,
sorry.
and I'm trying to interrupt there to let you know,
JB.
the whole liquor license issue is in process right now, okay? So let's leave it
Okay, there you
alone
go.
until we
There you go.
run through that process.
Okay.
Thank you.
The answer to the question though was, we have never asked.
Okay.
Okay,
So we have not been denied.
Oh, never.
all right,
Dr. Berger never tried to hold us up.
okay.
I mean,
So,
why did he care? We did 60,000 a year, he did 60,000 a day.
so
He
in,
really wasn't worried about us.
so in summary for today, we completed golf, we completed, food and beverage. The finance committee will now meet for a little time to put together all our summaries of our notes and all that. JB, I know we have some type of meeting on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
We have to get back to you. We could set that up, whatever, it doesn't have to be right now.
There's a meeting in here at noon, you know.
There's a meeting in here at noon?
Yeah, the
Okay.
board.
Oh, the
special
board's in
meeting
here,
of
I
the
knew the board
directors.
was having a meeting, I
Right.
didn't know it was here though.
The,
it noon?
Okay, that's
the-
fine.
the-
Thank
the
you.
one thing I wanted to go back and visit from, I guess, Tuesday's meeting, is a little process piece that we haven't really done before in the past. And I'm willing to do whatever the Budget and Finance Committee and the board want to do here. I understand from our history that at this point, Budget and Finance Committee, we come up with, y'all come up with a list of recommendations, and you forward that to the board, and the board deals with all those things. My suggestion is that, and this is why we have this other meeting scheduled on, coming up on Tuesday, is that we've taken all of these 3 days of work sessions, you know, and, for example, the 45% target for changing the payroll in here, that I would make that change, that all the recommendations that the Budget and Finance Committee has to this point, that we go through those on Tuesday, and we agree to, we, the Budget and Finance Committee and the General Manager, agree or disagree on all those recommendations. Where we agree, the Budget and Finance Committee goes ahead and makes a vote on those changes. We can change that now, and that becomes from a proposed budget, what this is, to a recommended budget that goes to the board. Those decisions have already been made and changed in this budget, and it goes to the board as a recommended budget. The board doesn't have
When are we
to,
gonna come to an
Oh, we're
agreement?
gonna talk about it. We're
the
gonna talk right
board
now.
doesn't have to revisit those things unless they wanted to. They can revisit anything they want to. But if we, in other words, for example,
Right.
if we change the payroll and the food and beverage to the 45%, I agree with that. Y'all vote on it. All right, we've changed that in here. So when the board gets their piece, if they want to change that to 50% or 40% instead of 45, then they can do that, obviously. But they don't have to change it from what it is to this number.
As long as we highlight what we changed.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would all be highlighted in, because the membership in general knows that, okay, here's the proposed budget. It has a $60 increase in the assessment. The recommended budget is now down to 30, let's say, just for example. And that's what the board is dealing with at that point.
Yeah, we need to see, you need to see, and we need to see the financial impact it has on this.
Right,
these
and so that piece is what gets presented on the 20th in this hearing that's held in this same room, is that is that budget.
John, you had.
Well, I did just one quick. Historically, we've always done fairly broad-based recommendations. You should look at this, yada, yada, yada. Now we're talking about changing something from 59% to 49%.
Well,
Is that the
no,
direction we
that's not-
want to go?
It wasn't broad, those were the type of, we did make those kind of recommendations. We did talk about this with JB in our meeting. It was my understanding we all agreed to that. Just one thing I want to put out there so you all understood, I would have had, just like last year, the letter coming out from this Budget and Finance by Tuesday anyway. I think we have a little more this year, but I think it works. That was my impression from the whole team.
I'm fine
It's-
with
it's
that. I just
consistent.
didn't realize we were getting down that far. We're
We've
drilling
done
down
that
the
before.
road.
We've done that before.
I think we
Historically,
should,
yeah.
You know,
Okay.
we're not gonna make that decision. I haven't seen if you asked me what we talked about on Tuesday, I'd have to go back and look through my notes, which are
All right, we'll help you out.
hundreds of pieces of paper
I'll
like
help you
this.
out. I
I mean, I
respect that.
think this needs to
I'll
come
help
in
you out.
in minutes.
We have time,
We
we
got
have to
notes.
Tuesday, first of all.
Yeah, and
And we're
then-
gonna set that up now. Last year it worked.
and by the
It
way, I don't
worked
feel
last
like-
year. Well, the other thing is too, right, you remember, you know, I got the team here and we gotta all discuss that. But anybody that feels that way, I will help them get along to get to the point where I'm at. We do have more this year. It works. That's what I was planning on anyway.
We had, John took minutes, right?
Hey, Larry.
Yeah, we got it going.
We got him.
I haven't sat down and read them. I don't know about you guys.
You got four, you got all
I got the
weekend.
first words out of my mouth. I couldn't speak fast enough to
It'll work.
prevent you from interrupting.
All right,
Time for pain
Let
medication.
me finish.
the more we talk, the less time we have to do it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, anybody else on the committee that feels like they have notes they want to share with the rest of the committee, they could do it by email before Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, actually, we ought to sit down.
I almost think that's.
Well, I think
We're gonna be
we should
doing
do
it
this
as we
today.
speak, exactly. We did that last year. I sent out an email
Well,
and everybody
that's all it is now.
commented, it worked. That's what I plan on doing now. With that, the rest we'll do again.
should-
This
we
is
should-
over, Charlie, if you can, if you
should
haven't
go
turned it
somewhere
off already. Thank you very much. I just wanna make sure I say this before I forget. Thank you to JB, thank you to his department heads, thank you to everybody that came. I believe we got plenty of input. Thank you for this team and the people, other people that was there. I believe everything was transparent. Every question that this team asked of the GM and his department heads were answered. If not, they came back with more detail. I don't think there was any question here that was not answered.
I'd like to
I
thank
know the work-
homeowner Art.
There you go, and we want to shout out to Art Carmine. We know how much he did to get all that paperwork together and all that.
Art who?
Welcome to Steve, and I'm done.
Are we gonna?
Oh, wait a minute, here comes Colette. All right, let's stand by one. Stand by one. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Let's like to call the meeting in order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first item on the agenda is the approval of today's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Doug, I'd like to amend the agenda to include a motion to appoint Stephen Phillips as Assistant Treasurer.
Pat, thank you, so noted. Everybody,
Second.
okay, any questions? And for the general public listening, Steve is the new Director of Finance. This is a mere formality to make sure that he has the appropriate signing authority and access to the financial information that he needs. All right, I'll accept the motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, okay.
Aye.
All right, so the motion, please record the agenda has been amended as noted. President's remarks, none other than to, again, with those folks in the association that have, that are not aware, there's a lot of work going on with the Budget Finance Committee, the general manager, the department heads regarding the budget preparation. I'd just like to recognize all the hard work that everybody's doing in putting together this budget, reviewing the information. Kudos to all those involved. And my personal thanks as we work through this budget and get something to the association that is relevant to running the association in a fiduciarily responsible manner, okay? So, first item on the agenda, I'm sorry, next item on the agenda, public comments. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comments section of the meeting and move into our first item on our agenda. Cheryl.
I move to approve the funding not to exceed $40,000 for the amended architectural drawings of the second floor of the Country Club. Background: after careful consideration of the needs and functionality of the Country Club, current management has developed a redesign of the layout for the second floor that required amending the prior drawings. Discussion: in order to have the construction of the second floor completed in time for the upcoming golf season and associated golf tournaments, in particular the 50th anniversary tournament scheduled for June 30th, approval is required to have the amended architectural drawings completed to be able to start the permitting process.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Discussion. Let me float something. I'd like to entertain a motion to suspend Robert's Rules of Order so that we can enter into a discussion with folks not on the board.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of suspending Robert's Rules of Order for that particular purpose?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Okay. Robert's Rules of Order have been suspended, and we can continue with our discussion with folks outside of the board. So the floor is open for discussion. And I see a willing participant, JB.
Wanted to welcome representatives from DVF, the architecture and engineering firm that has put together the plans that are before you. They're here with us today, and I'll let them sort of walk through what is proposed and what so the plan and some of the timeline associated therewith. So.
Okay, I'm Chris Cullen with Davis, Bowen & Friedel. This is Andrew Welsh, also with Davis Bowen Fidel.
Can we stop right there for a second? Pat, can you hear?
Somewhat.
Okay.
Can you get closer to the?
Yeah, speak a little bit closer so Pat can hear. Thank you.
I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Chris Cullen with Davis Bowen and Fidel.
And Andrew Welch, structural engineer, Davis Bowen Fidel.
Would you like us to review the plan?
Yes, please.
Oh, hold on, Cheryl.
I would just like to say, before they get started, the reason that I asked for this motion is because I feel very passionate that we have to move forward and get the second floor completed of the country club. And I appreciate the fact that while things may have gone off course a little bit with this firm, thank you very much for being willing to come back with us and complete this project as quickly as possible is my goal, of course. Thank you.
You're welcome. Basically what we have before you in a printed format is the latest floor plan with 3 changes that were asked for by John in an email. This is what we would consider to be the phase 1 bid set only. So we would be, in the beginning, we would be eliminating the stairway that goes up to the office on, let's call it the 3rd floor. And then we're putting a wall across the room so the room is no longer opened to the vestibule, and there are 2 doors that would open up into that vestibule area from the room for exiting purposes and entrance. The room has 5 general spaces. It has 2 meeting rooms, which is basically controlled by movable partitions. It was discussed whether these could be glass, and they could be, to allow the light from the existing windows to come through, or they could be opaque to actually separate those spaces when they're being used visually. That's a decision that can be made. Next, we have the large boardroom area that is shown having 125 chairs right now. It did have more chairs, but I had to eliminate those when we put the wall in the back so that people could actually walk around the chairs and use the door out the back of the room. The 3rd section is the bar and seating area in front of that bar. The 4th section then becomes the outdoor area, which will be raising the deck so it matches the floor inside, so we will not have a ramp or steps down into that area, so that you can, then it is ADA accessible. And then, of course, this corner piece, which has to be constructed to connect the 2 decks that we would have. From what I understand, we're removing the roof over the decked area that will be outside, so it will be uncovered for the full deck. And then we are removing a portion of the roof inside the main building so that we have matching pitches, and we'll have a cathedral-type ceiling. We can, I think, eliminate this column from the design. Yep. Right now, the drawing shows all the columns as they are. We have not eliminated any.
This one, and then
We can eliminate this column and pick up a chair and this column.
when we say we can eliminate them rather easily without disruption to other structures below in the pro shop, for instance. So they can rather easily be eliminated. Beyond that, might be much more of an effort.
Let me speak to the 3 other columns, if you would. With the elimination of the 2 relatively easily, the 2 on the right-hand side that sort of separate the bar, other side, right side, that separate the bar area from the big atrium ceiling, those 2 columns are fine to be kept. It separates those 2 areas. The seating there on the bar side, that's permanent but portable, shall we say. It can be moved around, but it stays there all the time. The seating and tables and arrangement for the big middle area, that's usually going to be empty. Groups and organizations that want to utilize it, as you're creating new space, the premise is if you want to have a meeting in there or utilize it or something, you come in, set up your own tables and chairs, you have your thing, and when you get done, you put them away. That would be, but So the two columns there on the right, probably, while I get back to my point, those two columns there, those would stay to create that room separation visually. The only column that pretty much is a problem is the one smack dab in the middle.
Yep.
Because it's so structural, it could impact below it into the pro shop, foundation issues and that type of thing. So that column may need to stay, and then it becomes a question, all right, how do we create an aesthetic element, shall we say, out of this 30-foot column? It's sort of in the middle. At least it's in the middle and not cattywampus to the whole room. So you have a visual, but how do we, and I think there'll be an artistic way that we can do that, where it's not, oh God, wow, there's a pole in the middle of the room.
I think you got rid of the two you needed to get rid of, and that one there, the loads. I mean, we'd be down here probably expanding the footing and the beam to run across to pick up the
In theory,
load
exactly,
across there
yeah.
would be pretty extensive, and the cost versus return, I just don't see
Exactly.
is there for that one, so.
I think then it becomes, how do we make that an aesthetically non-eyesore?
Let me just share with you the way we were able to remove these columns and not the others. You recall there was a mechanical floor up there, so there was a floor load that was being transferred to some of these columns. By taking that weight off, we're able to redistribute now load by adding some deeper, longer beams back onto those same columns. So we're removing floor load and redistributing the load by removing other columns. So I just wanted to share with you, how we were able to accomplish that.
Cheryl?
In your rendering, you show chairs set up on the left-hand side here, and then tables with chairs on the right. That's just for illustrative purposes, isn't it? I mean, those could be, that whole area could be tables with chairs around it if we needed it.
That's correct.
And what would be the capacity of that? How many people?
Well, I would actually have to do a layout that would be approvable by the fire marshal, but I think we were discussing earlier,
144.
144
to around that area.
Okay.
So it would be another, I think maybe a total of 22 tables.
Okay.
Altogether. But yes, these chairs are meant to be removed, and then you could easily put tables in.
Go ahead, Ted.
Speaking of that part, is one of the big things that's bit us over the last several years has been changes to structures and exceeding the parking allowable based on the capacity. Given the fact that we are actually reducing covered space here by taking out that decking and stuff, do you guys anticipate any problem with the county as far as parking goes? And that's something I think we need to figure out pretty much early on to make sure we don't run into a problem as we have in the past.
I think we do need to count the number of spaces that we have and then make that calculation.
Okay.
And obviously, that's something that we can do.
Yeah.
But you are correct. I guess we will be, right now, this is under, it'll become outside area.
And may not count towards capacity.
Parking capacity.
Just want to make sure we don't.
Yeah, that's a
I
great
believe
point,
that-
Ted.
I believe we mentioned, of course, the fire marshal said 200 people, the zoning code would say something different. So
That's all I want to
what
just,
we have
as
to
long, I
verify.
don't think it's a problem because we're really not expanding the footprint or anything else like that. But just as a safety thing, I think we should just, having been through this as an association a number of times, we should just double check.
We're not increasing the floor area, as you said, of the assembly space. And so it probably remains exactly the same.
Yeah, I'd like to think that's the case. All right, question on the meeting rooms, number 1 and number 2 there, those walls, they are not permanent, correct?
That is correct.
They are folding
They
walls.
do fold, and that's shown, these 5 or 6 panels are shown here, and these are shown here, and then these would split between the columns, so they would just stick out.
Right, so in essence, you could have meeting room 1 and 2 expanded into a single meeting room if you needed to. And you could also have it with leaving those walls up, and also expose it to the main open area by collapsing those walls. So that sounds pretty sort of what we call it, multi-use,
Multi-purpose.
multi-purpose facility, you know.
Right, you have breakout rooms
Yeah.
that are available if you so choose.
And that's even with those being glass? Because you said.
That's correct.
Oh,
If
okay.
they were glass, they would still be a wall, so it would still be,
But they could be glass, foldable?
yes.
And be glass?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I have a question about the board configuration. Is that board, table, or whatever it is that fixed?
Nothing is fixed in that room. That's all movable.
For drawing purposes, we drew it as a boardroom, and at the time, we didn't know if it would be portable or whether it'd be permanent. So we've been told
Yeah.
it will be.
It has
we'll just
boardroom
straighten
on
it
there,
out.
that's just illustrative. It's a open room.
You can turn it, you can do anything you want with it.
In a earlier discussion, Ted and I were talking about the fact that is there enough storage area for the tables and chairs that, you know, one would anticipate having out here? In other words, if we looked at your drawing and saw, let's say, full occupancy in the open areas and meeting rooms and deck, you know, what do we assume we would be able to store all of that furniture somewhere? And if, you know, in the table, chair, storage area, do we have enough room to store all of that furniture?
That's a calculation that we have not made. So if you would like to store all the tables, you know, I would certainly have to check to see if that room could handle all the tables. Obviously, even if you're gonna put tables out here, you're still gonna have chairs, so we're not storing all the chairs, we're just storing a portion of the chairs. So really, I think with some direction from you to tell us how much storage, whether it would be 50% of the tables and 50% of the chairs, or how much storage are you looking for? Because obviously, if this is gonna be an outdoor deck, I don't know if you're gonna leave them out in
Correct.
the wintertime.
Yeah. And then one sort of other question, the room to the right, JB, I don't know if this is your question for you, but the room to the right of the table and chair storage area, is that storage area for the kitchen? It's not labeled there.
In the top right-hand
Yeah,
corner
right there, that's it, yeah, that's it.
That's kitchen.
That's kitchen storage?
I would imagine that's your refrigeration.
Your refrigeration.
Okay, just, okay.
Yeah, and
Colette.
I have a question, I guess this is for JD about the kitchen.
It says existing kitchen, and that's exactly what it is. It doesn't change anything in the kitchen. This plan does not.
And so the kitchen we have up there is usable at this point?
Not at this
No,
point.
no.
And again, that's not part of this particular phase of the project. This is to get that, so for, say we get this done, as far as banquet type usage here, the space would be available. As far as the food preparation and whatnot, be a combination of Tern's and Yacht Club, you know, our own selves catering it to this venue. It'd be much more suitable for, but ultimately, that kitchen would be renovated. That's a different phase of this whole larger project. But it would be designed not as a yacht club type kitchen or even a Tern type kitchen. It would be more of a banquet
Warming kitchen.
type of facility for buffet type of thing.
How many phases do you anticipate? Okay, so 3?
4.
4. Okay, we got phase 1 here, we know the kitchen's another phase. What are the other 2 phases?
Well, this is phase 1. Phase 2 is the kitchen, and I guess it's 3, is the whole front side, the lobby, if you would, and the
Elevator?
that would be the elevator piece, the lobby, and the whole exterior piece of, again, not documented here, but you lower the front push, and that, none of that has ever been dealt with as far as the civil engineering piece, utilities, environmental.
And my big thing is, and I understand we gotta figure out what we're doing with the kitchen, and quite frankly, if it turns into a warming kitchen, which is really what you're kinda talking about, you may even have a ton of space in there for storage, because it's such a large area. But the real question I have is that vestibule beginning area. I think at least even if we bid it out separately, from a design situation, we should really do the design now. And the reason is you're gonna end up finishing a whole lot of spaces. Do we have the correct electrical in for a future elevator? The other thing you wanna remember is when you finish this building, the day that you get ready to shut down that elevator that man lift that's in the front there, to do it, you have shut the second floor of that building down because there is no ADA compliance. And that's why you can't operate that for anything if you don't have a way to get the people up there, either by ramp or by.
Right, and that's timing.
Yeah, and that's timing. And so what I'd like to have considered in this first phase is to do the design at least on that, so we know where we're putting it, what its size is, you know, the electrical needs, that kind of stuff, and to have them include at least the design in on that. And that way, you know, we're not coming back and tearing parts, you know, ripping out stuff that we did already.
What would that add to this effort here?
Well, I guess the complexity of that would only be that at this time, we're not 100% sure that we can reconfigure the front of the building economically, that would be feasible for you all to move ahead as you would like to take out the drive, lower it. And obviously, that's also a bit of a time sink because we're not sure if we have to go back and do the.
Well, let's drop back a little and let's hit the things that would really be a concern to us. One,
Well, the elevator is number of stops.
Okay.
And because that's how an elevator is designed. So it would be whether it's, you know, right now it's a split level, so we've kind of added one stop to it that wouldn't be there if we did the front. So that's a $20,000 savings in the elevator itself. But as far as our design work, it's not.
Here's what I'm getting at. Regardless of whether we get the permission long-term or not, we're gonna end up doing something there. I just wanna make sure that the stuff that's, quote, permanent, that we are sized well enough to go either way electrically. And then if we get permission and we only have to do one stop, we save on the elevator. If we don't get permission, we got 2 stops, but we've got enough juice in there to cover us going forward. In other words, let's think about not so much the aesthetics and architectural part, but the mechanical part, M&E, you know, and make sure we've got that figured in this first phase, even if it's, I just don't want to go back and tear stuff out. We've done that in the past, so.
You'd also want to include voice, video, and data as well, right?
Yeah.
You want to make sure that, you know, how you're going to lay out these things as far as those accoutrements of the building go. And while the walls are down, you need to have a plan for including,
Right, we did
along
talk
with the
about that.
lighting.
That's a part of it. After there's approval today, then as far as putting together those documents, that'd be inclusive of all those types of issues.
Our MEP
Right.
So it sounds like what you really want to do is make sure that you have the requirements in place that would allow an elevator.
Yes.
Because obviously an elevator is really going to shut down the front of the building because of the foundations. Right now, I believe Andrew said that the building's on a pile foundation, so we'll have to think about how we hold this elevator up.
Right.
And so that, you know, that really does start to impact that area and completely close that area down.
And all I want to do is make sure, I don't know where the electrical comes into the building, where the panels are. I just want to make sure we're sized correctly and we've got enough juice to that area so that whatever we do, you know, we're not going back and ripping walls out later on.
Yeah.
Although we know we're going to be ripping up the whole floor and putting grade beams in or something, depending on what you end up doing in there.
Yeah, and I guess maybe a follow-on to sort of Ted's statement is, are we doing anything in this particular phase that would preclude us from doing anything else going forward? In other words, are we painting ourselves into a corner where we would have to, you know, basically rip things out in order to redo something?
Well, just looking at this configuration, I'm not sure where the elevator could go today. So I don't know if these stairs get reconfigured so that then the elevator could either fit on this side or this side. But right now, I know that a public elevator would not fit where the lift is right now.
Correct.
Right.
So, you know, there will be some stair modification in this area for an
Right,
elevator to
but
go
I'm-
in.
if I may, what I was envisioning is, is that your elevator is right here. And you have one set of steps or two sets of steps if you wanted to from that entryway up to the second floor. But you have it's a two-sided door of an elevator. You've been in them before, where you come in this side, it goes up one floor, and then you step right out into this room. So it's sort of basically right here is your elevator. You come in, you go up, you exit right into that room.
And just in saying that, if somebody needs to go down the hall, is there enough space to go? And I know exactly what you're saying, but let me just throw this out. If
Right,
the elevator
there
sits
isn't
in,
right now, right
Yeah.
now, there's 7 feet across here, and the elevator is 7, 8 by 8 feet.
and the other thing is, if the elevator
It's a
is right in
design issue.
here, how do you get down the
Or
hall?
push
to-
over a little bit, whatever.
And that's why I'm saying, and the other and this is why I just, even though we don't go through the whole design, is to think about it, maybe these doors need to be down here, and that's gonna be your capture space, since you can get to this space from 2 different directions in here. I just wanna think about that, because if we're gonna put these if this is the right space for the elevator, where you could take that whole group, maybe those doors just need to shift down here, that way you can get here and get off the elevator. So that's what I'm talking about just thinking a little bit ahead of where it would go, even if you haven't designed the whole thing. So we just put the doors in the right place.
Right. I don't think that would really add to our contractual price.
Okay.
You know, just thinking about the pre-planning of it.
Right, just pre-planning, that's what I'm saying.
And then I also, following up on, these are the concerns that I had about the kitchen, you know, particularly the electrical. Have we made a decision that this is just gonna be a warming kitchen?
It would not be if you were having a plated meal, sit down type of thing, that's the yacht club. If you're doing a buffet.
That's gonna be our long-term plan,
Yeah,
that
if you-
this building will never have a kitchen that could prepare meals for this size space.
Right, as a plated, you know,
Okay.
we're gonna prepare everything
And
here,
so,
no.
what is the Tern's capacity for preparing food for this?
It's gonna be limited to the burgers and the fries and the barbecue and things like that.
But it's big
Where you're
enough
looking-
that they could serve that level
No.
of bar-type food upstairs to this number of tables?
No. No. I mean, you're looking at golf tournaments, buffet types of meals, that type of thing.
And so just banquet is
Yeah,
all that we're gonna do
right.
up there?
And again, fast forward, if you're, I'm gonna use the Lions Club, for example. Lions Club is having a meeting there, great. If they're having a meeting with a meal, it's gonna be a buffet, not a plated, sit down, bring it to the table, wait on you type thing. If the group wants a plated, sit-down dinner or lunch, it's yacht club.
And what you usually get in these things are like commercial dishwasher, large ice maker, those shelves that you see that are actually on wheels where they can slide all the plated dishes in if they were to bring food over. And if they even wanted to bring it over from the yacht club, they would bring it over and use it. It's basically a holding place.
Yeah, it's a
in sense.
self-catering type of facility.
I just have concerns that we don't yet know what the long-term plan for the yacht club is and how that plan could impact our usage of this new space for banquet or winter use if we decide, you know, whatever, you know.
Well, what I was saying earlier today, and as part of the Budget and Finance Committee piece with regard to the yacht club, if we were to collectively say that, all right, well, we're not going to operate year-round for dining at the yacht club, that doesn't keep us from doing banquet events.
Right.
Or weddings, receptions, special events
New Year's
for,
Eve.
you know, reunions,
Yeah.
commemorative type stuff, that would still be self-catered. And
But we'd be
yacht club
limited.
would still be
Yeah.
operating.
But we'd be
Yeah.
limited to this space then for kind of the meeting place where people show up for trivia night or have a meal out.
Yeah, it'd be upstairs.
It would
you
be
could do it.
upstairs,
Yeah.
and this kitchen could accommodate that, bar food type food up
Right.
there, the number of people that could.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
and-
from-
and, yeah, that'd be
it-
based on the numbers. Can we just do it out of here, or do we need additional, service prep.
Maybe to summarize this discussion, you bring up a good point, Colette, but, I guess the question in my mind is, do we need another restaurant? And the answer is no. No, we don't need another restaurant kitchen. We can designate, that kitchen for these particular functions. I think if we're comfortable, we make that decision now, and it's not somewhere down the road, if we rethink it, yes, we want to do that. But for right now, I don't want to boil the ocean. Let's look at it and say, we can function in the short term, all right, in order to keep this project on task and on time, is to just designate it in the way JB just said it. Let's drive a stake in the ground and say that's the way we're going to use it right now, knowing it, nothing's permanent, but I think it's a very good way to keep, all things considered, going. Your point is well taken, but I think we just need to make a decision. That's like, let's go ahead and claim that that's really the way we want to do it, unless.
Well, you're not even making a decision on the kitchen.
Yeah, it's like.
Okay, you're not even there
right,
yet.
Right, it's
that
just,
can be decided
but
going down
I don't want to get hung up in minutia right now, and I guess my point is let's keep the momentum going, but again, I don't want to
But
diminish your
I
point,
guess
because
my-
it's a very good one.
Yeah, and the other point, kind of piggybacking on what Ted was talking about with the electrical panels.
Right.
That we have space, that if we change our mind down the
Right,
road.
right.
Even though we're not wiring it now, the space would be there to add.
Exactly,
panels
yeah, and I think that we should do that.
Yeah,
We should do that, all right. Cheryl?
I think the point that Colette brings up is the decision about the kitchen and its use based on a budgetary concern, or is it based on our new GM's vision of how this facility ought to be used? And I guess we have to agree, because I don't think we had ever gotten to that point for sure of exactly how the kitchen would be used.
Right.
You have introduced.
I think it's vision of how it would practically be utilized in a reasonable way. Can you go further than that? Sure you can, but I don't think that's what we want to do. It adds a whole another level of difficulty.
Well, but my point is, was it from your perspective what you believe is the right thing to do, or is there a budget element associated with, no, let's not have a full-blown kitchen there because it's too costly, and in addition to that, even if we did it at a phase, it's not the right thing to do right now. So it's your belief, based on your experience, and that's why we hired you, that that's the right way to utilize that facility?
Yes.
And that could always change?
Sure.
So it's not necessarily just a budgetary concern?
No.
Okay.
And I think we should, once we get through, at some point here in the next several months, we should come back through when food and beverage kind of comes together and talk about it in a big scope of, hey, does it still fit? I mean, you could even go in here and do a modify. You could add a little bit of extra in here. For instance, if they decide that Tern's Grille needs something extra upstairs in order to function correctly. So I think the biggest thing, like you said, is try to make sure that we get this first phase started, knowing that we got to come back and revisit the kitchen and use on an overall thing here in the next couple months.
Managerially, it's a lot of coordination between, okay, what do we have for regular play on the golf course? What do we have for special events? What do we have for package play that's coming in separately? Then you get into the whole aspect of what the director of golf can promote for corporate events. You could have, while our members and guests are playing in the morning hours when we like to play, and you've got a corporate event that's having a gathering, breakout sessions or whatever, and then they're having lunch, small, 24, 48, and then they're playing golf in the afternoon. All the packaging that comes along with that, then that really starts to develop into that next year's budget process. Then we're got all sorts of options to pursue.
And I know you're going to get into all of this down the line once some action is taken, but obviously we need to look at sound systems. Doug talked about Wi-Fi, some stuff in the floor where, depending on how the setup is, we're able to plug right in without any problems. Do with the vaulted ceilings in there, and given ceiling sound problems that we had at the yacht club, are we looking at the acoustical? I mean, let's make sure we got A to Z in it the
The whole
first
nine
time,
yards,
so we're
right.
not coming back, so all inclusive.
Yeah.
Other discussion?
I have a question, and maybe you can help me, because I'm not familiar with all this, but.
Speak up, Tom.
Excuse me?
Speak up.
Well, a couple months ago, we were told that Public Works had contracted out for engineering and mechanical drawings for the project. And we're asking for another $40,000 to amend the drawings. So I'm just concerned, is there any way, if we do have those designs for mechanical and engineering, is there any way that that could affect the cost and lower the cost of not going up to 40,000, because we've already contracted out for those drawings and those designs already?
Was that based on the prior plans? Is that, I'm sorry.
I thought I thought this company was the group that we had paid, and we, to save money, we have gone back and amended their drawings and brought them back in to save us money by using them to amend their original drawings.
Now, again, I'm not familiar with the inner workings, but we were told that Public Works contracted with MES Engineering and JMB Mechanical already. And they were gonna use those designs and make modifications if necessary to those designs. So I'm just wondering if that's available, as Public Works has designs already that we can just modify to save on the cost of the association.
Yeah, I guess the question is, do we have those drawings? I don't know.
I apologize, I'm at a loss at the moment.
These were the only drawings
This is pre-you starting.
that I knew we
Pre-you
had.
starting, so.
Okay. Anybody in the room with some history?
I think my idea would be is that we're at a max of 40. I think you should go back, figure out what we have, get them to these guys, see if they even fit within the concept of what we're doing. If they would save anything, they would, fine. If not,
Let's just ask right now, if you had a set of drawings that had been done already with some design criteria, would that affect the price?
Well, of course, our mechanical and electrical and plumbing price is with another firm.
Sure.
With Allen and Shreve. I don't know. I can't imagine that it has anything to do with removing the roof, pushing the roof up, or getting rid of the whole ceilings gotten rid of. I mean, I don't even know the scope of what those designs were, so I
Well,
can't.
that was a different plan, correct?
that was,
can't even
that
really
was
answer
tr-
that.
when they were working with Willow, I believe, directly.
Willow Construction.
And so
Diff-
I'm
it was
not
a
even,
different
I
plan.
think Tom's saying he's not even sure that the drawings were actually completed because they never showed up at board level, certainly. So, but it's something to investigate, see if there's anything that would assist them in helping. Is that kind of where you're?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's
mean,
a
I
good-
was told that they existed, and I was just wondering if that would
that's a-
benefit us
that's a-
in any way.
Yeah, that is a good point.
We will find out and forward it to them, and then if it helps, great. Tell them that.
So I guess the question I'd ask my board colleagues in it is that, are we comfortable knowing that we could, with what we know right now, considering moving forward with this, knowing that there's a potential that if we had the drawings that, Tom, that you'd mentioned, that, it could potentially affect the price. Is that a fair statement?
It's not gonna go up.
Yeah, it's not gonna go, yeah. Give me a sanity check. Is that reasonable?
And I guess, yeah, I think so. And-
Okay, Pat? Pat, sound check. You're probably on mute? Oh, okay, very good. Thank you, okay.
Timing for getting a set of drawings and bid documents prep that we could put out an RFP on this. What's the reasonable,
No, what's the
Phase one.
quickest?
yeah, well, yeah.
Phase
Yeah, we
one,
know.
we were contracted for 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay.
Can you do it sooner?
I don't believe so.
And so then after construction drawings are done,
We should have an RFP
Yeah.
prepped now, or
Yeah.
during this 6 weeks period that we
So,
add
end-
the drawings
yeah,
to.
End of February, we should have drawings in hand. Fair enough? I see this,
Yeah, well, 6 weeks from.
right, which would
Right,
be
6
end
weeks
of
from
February.
the approval of our
Right,
contract.
assuming we do it today, 6 weeks, okay,
and in February,
Yeah.
February board meeting, you've got construction documents and an RFP. And you issue that out at, I say the February board meeting, I guess.
I would, this is just my 2 cents from it. I would go ahead and get the RFP put together right now, where we're gonna add the documents from
Yeah,
them as the contract documents. I would, go ahead, we have somewhere in Public Works lists of general contractors that we've used years past, to
Yeah,
gauge their thing of it, and as soon as we get drawings, then RFP goes out, we have a scheduled date in there for a site visit to look around it, which these guys will be here as well to answer any questions. We already have a procedure set in there for any RFIs that come in to run through. And then the question is, on a job of this size, what do you guys reasonably think is the time frame to allow bidders to take a look at it? Because they've got to go to subs and everything else to put the numbers together. Is 3 weeks, 4 weeks? Just from your experience on something in this.
Well, it's
It's a little complicated up top.
the largest complicated thing is the roof, obviously. But as far as that goes, I mean, as far as bidding, the 3 to 4 weeks would, you know, 3 weeks, they're gonna complain. 4 weeks, they cannot complain.
Right.
Because that's what they always typically get.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And then, let me ask you one, and this is just from a timing standpoint, that has nothing to do with us bidding it and everything. The complexity of what you're doing for beams is something that's readily available. It's not something that, I mean, are you thinking steel, or are you thinking, you know, where we're getting rid of columns and stuff? Because sometimes the lead times on that kind of stuff, even after you've awarded a contract, if we're talking about trying to be done in June, you've now cut the date down to next to nothing to get this thing finished, so.
Wide flange beams is what
Wide
we'll be
flange beams, so it's something.
specifying readily available.
Okay.
And the sizes are not gonna be anything.
Just a standard
It's gonna be
W
off the
something.
shelf, yep.
Yeah, okay.
I think as in anything, the long lead item here would be the movable partitions.
Okay.
Okay.
Which go in at the end. So.
Other discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as presented to approve the final construction plans for the second floor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, please report it. All right, thank you. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and effort here, and,
You got the green light, let's go.
yeah, that's actually, I was just gonna say, and be prepared to get emails from the vice president, as she will be checking on a daily basis as to your progress.
Call Chris.
Give your card.
All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda. Pat?
Yes. A motion to appoint Stephen Phillips as the second assistant treasurer, and to approve Stephen Phillips as an authorized signer and representative on all Ocean Pines Association bank accounts.
Second.
Background: as Director of Finance, he holds the senior employee financial position in Ocean Pines, and as such, he would assume the role and certain responsibilities associated with the assistant treasurer designation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, I'll close discussion and call the question. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Just timing there. There's a voice delay there, yes. All right, it's unanimous.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Wait a minute, that's, all right, wait a minute. We have to actually bring Robert's Rules of Order back into play. All right, anyway, yes. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.